and thank you, Charles. Okay. Yeah. Welcome to tonight's License Subcommittee meeting. My name is Councillor Macy Ume, and I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. If I lose connection and cannot reconnect, Councillor Wesley Hackett will take over for me. I would like to remind all participants of few housekeeping points. Please keep your microphone muted unless you are speaking. Please keep your camera turned on when you speak at the hearing. Please note that chat function has been disabled. If parties wish to add additional information other than their allocated time to speak, they must use the raise hand function so that they are not missed. I also ask that members keep their questions and comments brief to the point. I now move to item 1 on our agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. None has been received. Item 2, declaration of interest. None. Item 3, Molly's, Fulham, 308 to 310 North End Road, South West 6, 1 NQ. I would like to ask all participants to introduce yourself as I call on you. We will have with us Olu Solowa, who is the applicant's agent.
My name, yes, I'm Olushola.
Olushola.
Yes, please.
Olushola. Okay.
Thank you.
Edrin Overtime. Edrin.
Present. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Gertrude.
It's present, Chair.
Okay. Now we have objectors.
Sorry, Chair, before you go into the objectors, we also have the applicant, Mr. Samuel Aduba, on the line as well, just so if you can introduce him as well, Chair.
Okay, I saw it on my notes. Okay, Samuel, can you introduce yourself, the applicant?
Hello, present. Yeah, Samuel here.
Okay. We have the objectors. Then with objectors, we have John, Ben.
John Schooling, Chair. If you try and read the surname as well.
I can read. Okay, want me to read the surname? I was going to read only the first names. We have John Schooling. We have Ben Brian. We have Annabelle Cottrell. Are they here?
No, Chair, they're not. They're being represented by those people. So if you just read the people that are present are the people with the numbers against them. So it'd be John Schooling, and then Ellen Lewis is the next person.
Okay, Ellen Lewis. We have Charlotte. Then we have Elena. We have Sarah. We have Simon. We have Emilia. We have Sarah. We have Chloe. We have Craig. We have Matthew. We have Oscar. We have Sharon. And then we have the ward councillor. Now, procedure. Before we consider the application today, I can confirm that in addition to main agenda, several supplementary agendas were published on the following dates. A supplementary agenda on 30th of June, supplementary agenda A on 3rd of July, supplementary agenda B on the 4th of July. May I quickly explain the procedure the committee will follow? We will hear from the following. The licensing officer will introduce the application. We will hear from the objectors, the ward councillor, Councillor Ben Coleman, finally the applicant. Please note that we have a considerable number of objectors attending tonight. I would like to give everyone who has registered the opportunity to speak. Usually, each party will address the committee once for maximum of 5 minutes. Taking into consideration the large number of objectors who have registered to speak tonight, I would suggest that we try to avoid repetition. If we consider that the points you intended to make has already been raised, you have the option to be brief or less. You can locate your time or even waive your right to speak. Following on the presentation by all parties, the committee may ask questions to any party other than the person present at the hearing. No party has the right to question any other party at any time during the hearing. Following the presentation and questioning, each party will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to sum up their case or representation. The committee will then retire for deliberation. Upon its return, I will announce the committee's decision. Licensing officer, can I ask the licensing officer, Adrian, to introduce the application?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, panel. So just by way of background, on the 3rd of May 2023, Olu Shola submitted an application on behalf of SAQ TH Limited for a new premises license to be granted in respect of the business known as Morley's 308 to 310 North End Road, SW6 1NQ. The application submitted looks to permit the sale of alcohol both on and off the premises and late night refreshment both indoors and outdoors. The licensable hours originally sought were as follows: the sale of alcohol on and off the premises Monday to Sunday 11 AM until midnight, the provision of late night refreshment again both indoors and outdoors Sunday to Thursday 11 PM until midnight, and Friday and Saturdays 11 PM until 2 AM. The opening hours of the premises applied for were Sunday to Thursday 11 AM until midnight, and Friday and Saturdays 11 AM until 2 AM. On the 11th of May 2023, following correspondence with the police licensing team, the applicant agreed to reduce the hours for late night refreshment and the opening hours on a Friday and Saturday to 1 AM rather than 2 AM previously. They also agreed to add 8 conditions to the license if it was granted. On the 12th of June 2023, following correspondence received from the Noise and Nuisance team, the applicant also agreed to add 3 further conditions to the license if granted, including a condition which stipulated that no alcohol shall be supplied for consumption off the premises, other than to deliveries made to bona fide residential or business addresses. During a 28-day consultation period, the licensing section received a total of 45 representations objecting to this application. This consisted of 1 representation from Councillor Ben Coleman, who's here this evening, 1 representation from the lead of the Seagrove Residents Association, and 43 representations from local residents objecting to the licence application. I can confirm that the application was advertised in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003 and the regulations associated with that legislation. There have been numerous other documents submitted by the objectors and from the licensing team as well, which have been circulated as supplementary agendas, and I understand that all members and all other parties have seen those. An initial supplementary agenda was circulated on the 30th of June 2023, and this included further evidence from residents and an amended representation to replace pages 86 and 87 of the report. Supplementary Agenda A, which is the second supplementary agenda, was circulated on the 3rd of July 2023, and that included further evidence in support of the representations received by local residents. And the final supplementary agenda, which was Agenda B, was circulated on the 4th of July, and that included a floor plan from the original application, which was omitted in error from the original agenda pack, and a local news article from an objector. All these items have been circulated to all parties. I don't have anything else to add at this stage unless you have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Adrian. Now we're going to go to the objectors, and John Scolding will be speaking on behalf of 2 people, including himself. That makes it 3. And can I ask Charles, please, in terms of timekeeping, to remind us when to stop, each one that starts within that period of time given. So I think John Scolding will be speaking on behalf of 3 people. That means 15 minutes is allowed. Charles, are you taking the time?
That's correct, Chair. Yes, I'll be time.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Ellen gave him more time. May I say that?
Sorry, what time?
Ellen has 40 minutes and she would like to give more time to John Scolding. I'm sorry, but we discussed this with Lorna.
Well, you might discuss it with Lorna. I have about 17 people speaking tonight, so I wouldn't be giving extra time to extra people, because it means, you know, we're going, we see how we get on, but she doesn't have 45 minutes anymore, because she's losing Mima and Natasha, so she hasn't got 45 minutes. The councillor will be speaking on her behalf, on their behalf.
Hi, sorry, Chair. I'm only supposed to be speaking tonight on behalf of one resident, Miss Kajori. So I don't mind if Ellen would like to take, or anybody, another resident would like to take the time for the other resident.
I think we agreed on, you are speaking on behalf of Natasha as well.
No.
Did I get it wrong, Adrian? Or
I think, yeah, I think it's just one count. It's just one person that the councillor is speaking on behalf of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then. Charles, we still stick to the time. We see what time we have got left.
John Scolding, Chair. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, John, please. John, 15 minutes. Is John there? No.
He's connected to the meeting, Chair.
Still on the call, yeah.
Okay, doesn't he want to speak?
How about I start? It's Ellen Lewis here, just to help time.
Okay, I think
he has his hand raised.
Okay, okay, John, what do you want to speak about? You have your hand raised, John. Hello.
Mr. Scolding, you're muted at the moment. Can you turn your camera on, please?
Excuse me, John says someone has him on mute.
Yeah, we could start with Ellen and try and resolve that.
Yeah, let's start with Ellen, and he can come back.
Okay, do you have Charles Francis's number? I gave it to you.
Charlotte, you put on mute.
Elena, please, can you start?
Yeah, thank you very much. If I can get the committee to look at supplementary agenda pack A. Section 1 is purely visuals, just to help everyone see the location, really highlight the key residential area entrances, which are next door and also above. And also highlights the narrow one-way street, which is the Haldane Road, which is adjacent to McDonald's and the premises. I really like to start with section 2, which is actually page 9 to 15 of this pack. And page 10 highlights the crime map. And I think it's really important to sort of set the scene of where we are existing with the crime in the area. And unfortunately, I have to say, it is actually one of the highest in our immediate shopping area, particularly antisocial behaviour. And what the recent Fulham Green Ward meeting specifically highlighted McDonald's in this area being the most significant disorder on the ward at present, and that involves a gang of violent youths. I'm sure, obviously, the residents that are literally living on the doorstep will go further into this and give their full experiences themselves. But I've actually spoke to the Safer Neighbourhood Police team myself, and they kindly provided CADs, which really just showcases, you know, the difficulty in the area because police are on special measures. Obviously, they don't have the manpower to really control the situation at this point of time. and really highlighting the next section of chicken grooming. Then this has been across on national coverage, and whilst I appreciate the Brown Morleys, obviously this is not in respect of them direct, this is a national problem. So I think we really need, as from a licensing point of view, there is the key objective to protect children from harm here. And where we've already got violent use specifically, here at this area, adding another fast food takeaway and putting on top of that alcohol, both on and off sales, is just going to not only compound the problem, but I think is going to be an absolute lethal combination. And I think that really needs to be expressed here. And also the last section, section 3. Now this is really key, and just to give everyone.
Hello? Helena?
I think she may have lost connection, Chair.
Oh dear. Okay. How many minutes was that, Charles, please?
It was only 3, Chair, about 40 minutes she's got to speak.
Okay. Do we ask, is John Scolding back?
Yes, he is, Chair.
Okay, maybe we have John. John, is it possible you come back and you are speaking on behalf of 3 people? Is that okay?
Yes,
John?
Chair. Obviously, I recognise the time constraints with so many applicants and
Yes,
objectors, so I'll keep it succinct. Perhaps if I start and I'll pick up where Ellen left off in relation to crime and disorder.
Okay.
Just perhaps 2 or 3 quick observation points. One, I think it is highly significant that there were 44 objectors, and so many objectors. If you look at the quality and detail and the consistency is they share the same concerns about personal security, the development of the area. And I think the numbers are hugely significant and should be recognised. As Ellen's touched on, the site is by its nature right on the doorstep of, literally the front door of, in one case, 100% residential roads, and we'll come back to the significance of that. And the point that I think Ellen had started with is the very real context to this, which is the crime and disorder and antisocial behaviour environment that we currently have in this area. I don't know, I can hear some background noise. I'm just wondering whether Ellen has rejoined us, but maybe she hasn't. I'm sure she'll speak if she has. So I don't want to repeat those, though the supplemental documents I think are very clear and very impressive. What is shocking is that they have a page that details, by reference to crime incidents in this location, that in relation to 6 key headings, I think it was 5 or 6, violence, sexual offences, antisocial behaviour, criminal damage, arson, theft and burglary, this area is exceptionally above the national average. We're not just talking a little bit. In some cases, we're talking 300% above. So I don't think we can underestimate, and I'm sure we shouldn't, and no one will underestimate, the significance of the problems and the growth of the problems in this area. And that is, I think, critical. Now, I had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Aduda, who very kindly called me after I had written to him asking for a discussion. And one of the things that struck me from that conversation, which was a very useful time, for which I'm hugely appreciative of him giving me that time, was that I came away with a very strong impression that he didn't not only know about the issues, the crime and disorder issues. I don't think he was at all aware of the size and scale of those issues. And I'm fairly certain from our discussions that there was no detailed discussion about the relevance and impact in relation to residents. And so, you know, I feel that is significant, and it's a theme I'm undoubtedly going to come back to. It's difficult because I suspect part of the reason for the application is that eat-in takeaway business drops off late at night, and therefore the need to attract and grow business by reference to late night delivery economies and possibly late night passers-by, where you have alcohol on offer, is hugely tempting. The problem, I think, for residents is that alcohol comes with a whole number of issues, and sadly the correlation between late night hours, alcohol and criminal activity is virtually undeniable in the hotspot that is this area. The police have described it as a total mess, and I think the underlying concern is that people who are already undertaking criminal activity at McDonald's, as supported by the CAD references that Ellen made, will simply, and pardon the pun, it's not intended, decant to Morley's, where, of course, they will find alcohol and a place to sit and carry on activities as they have done, and as they do across a number of venues, not just this venue. I think the other point just to pick up in relation to this, and I'm going to go back to the main agenda pack, of course, that the application process and the licensing objectives require applicants to detail, and this is page 6 and 7 of the pack, steps proposed to promote the prevention of crime and disorder. And I'm afraid during the discussions that I had with Mr. Aduda, those specific proposals were absent. And I don't think, however many signs and CCTV cameras are up, I think the reality is that the type of activity we're talking about outside the premises is something which is unmanageable and unenforceable by an operator. So I sense there is a real frustration collectively on the part of residents with the difficulties of grappling with these issues. But I also feel that the applicant probably, through perhaps no fault of their own, hasn't got the size and measure of what they're looking at. If we move on to noise and nuisance, this, as I'm going to come on to, is an application which is very similar to the Select Chicken application, which was heard last year, which, though it didn't apply for alcohol, did apply for extended late night refreshments, and it's just up the road at 349 North End Road. The problems, as were recognised in that application, are exactly the problems here. There's little or no room inside. Obviously, people don't want bike and delivery people sitting inside. It puts off punters who they want to come in and enjoy the premises. Those delivery drivers and dispatch riders congregate outside, they talk, they play music late into the night, they arrive, switch off their engines, walk to the venue, go back with their delivery, switch on their engines, go off again. Unfortunately, there's huge amounts of litter, unfortunate urination, they make noise because they speed. We've had issues with cars being scratched. We've had garden walls sat upon, late night phone calls being made on our front doors. And that's not, in one sense, it's not surprising. All these roads are very useful cut-through roads to get to places. These drivers are incentivized by delivering as much as possible, as quickly as possible. And that is a particular issue. This year's speciality, if I can call it that, is that when drivers are busy, what's happening now is that they don't have time to stop and talk. So as they drive past their colleagues and other drivers, they hoot at them and then they speed off. And if we're really lucky, the ones who are standing on the side of the road hoot back at them. So at 11:30 at night, we get to hear the joyous music of moped hooters going on, which I can tell you wakes us up even more. My submission, which starts on page 103, goes into a lot of detail. I'm not obviously going to go into all of that. One, I think, of the fundamental points is that I did some research around the law in this area and the balance in favour of the right of a resident to enjoy quietly their home and their right to sleep. And indeed, the case law is very much on the side of the homeowner and sleep as a necessity, as opposed to the luxury of late night delivery food being carried on. And my only real point there is that I do think a committee looking at these issues should operate within the wider confines of any legal requirements, and where the law states that the quiet enjoyment of a house is important, then the committee should make a decision in light of that. Madam Chair, and whoever's looking after the time, can I just ask how many more of my 15 minutes have I got left? Because I will tailor them to make sure I don't piss any of you off.
You have another 6 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much indeed. All right, so look, moving on. Interestingly enough, when I spoke to Mr. Aduda about the noise and nuisance issue, he said it's okay. Lots of these riders are all regulars. We'll talk to them. It's fine. We'll have a chat with them. We'll ask them, you know, to switch off their engines. Well, they already do that, and then they switch them back on again. And we've been talking to them for, you know, probably about 4 years now, and it's not got us very far. My experience is probably about 10 to 15% are regulars and returners, but not that many. My fundamental point is that I honestly don't believe, and no disrespect to Mr. Aduda, that putting signs up and talking to these delivery riders is going to make a whole hill of beans difference. It certainly hasn't for 4 years, and we've talked to them in very nice terms for a long time, and it hasn't yet. We may hear this evening that part of the reason for the application, of course, is the economy and the hard times that everyone is in, and that businesses need to be given the opportunity to make or have longer opening hours to increase their revenues. I would say about that it cuts both ways, because my experience of residents on my road and my adjoining roads is, quite frankly, that a lot of them have taken second part-time jobs to help make ends meet. A lot of them are working longer hours to maintain a level of income while costs are higher. Every resident who is woken up at 11:30 by a delivery bike is somebody who is already probably working very long hours. They are tired, they need time to recover, rest, take on some nutrition and go again in the morning. In the current environment, that's just not possible on the roads around McDonald's and Morley's. And so whilst I hear loud and clear the demands of businesses, and I certainly want them to trade for reasonable hours, I do believe there is a balance, and the balance to be had with residents can equally rely on those arguments around the economy and what is going on at the moment. I probably don't need to tell people on the committee that, of course, it's important for applicants to consider adverse impacts on local residents, the potential for adverse impacts, whether there is any substantial increase in the cumulative impact. I mentioned at one point in my submission the fact that in something like 100, 120 meters of my door, there's like 11, 12 takeaways already. You know, at 5.3 on page 8, it says take into account the cumulative effect of the number, type and density of licensed premises already existing in the area. Well, we already have at least a dozen. I got one of their names wrong. Actually, I said Domino's, it should have been Papa John's, and I missed one out. But the point is, over a short period of time, there has been a disproportionate amount of this type of activity from 6 in the morning till very late at night on my road. It is now incontrovertibly true, 7 days a week, that there is commercial activity on 100% residential road, because those dispatch riders are there not because they live on Tournay Road, not because they are visiting friends. They're there to carry out the self-employed commercial activity of being a dispatch rider. And that takes place using the physical structure of 100% residential road, and has grown and is growing, as you can probably very well understand, if within 100 meters you've got 12 takeaways. It's just inescapable what's happening, and there needs to be, in my submission, a balance around that. I suspect I'm coming down to my very few last minutes. Obviously, others will refer to public safety, the swimming pig decision, very much recognised issues around harassment of people, the intensity of school-aged children in such a residential area, the direct aggression shown by late-night drug dealers and others to residents who dare to challenge them. The select chicken decision, I think, is hugely relevant here. I've set it out in my application. I don't intend to read it through. It's on page 107, but it's on all fours with this application. And on pages 107 and 108, it's very clear why it rejected the late night hours application for refreshment. I believe every one of those reasons applies to the Morley's application. I don't believe there is any distinguishing feature in the location of this site against the location of the Select Chicken site and the decision of last July. I have mentioned also that I don't think there has been a proper assessment by the applicant. I'm disappointed about what's happened around the signage. I was told when I spoke to the applicant that he had a very experienced architect who was very experienced at these areas, and yet I recently understand that in relation to the signage, there's been a complete U-turn on 5 or 6 key issues which have all had to be corrected. So it sounds as if the very experienced architect, it wasn't either listened to or was ignored, or maybe wasn't as experienced because it went badly wrong. I understand equally that there is no planning application at the moment in relation to this being a takeaway. When I spoke to Mr. Aduba, he clearly said to me that the average time at the table is 15 minutes and described the premises as a fast food premises. So I have other reasons for questioning and being skeptical about the application.
Is our time up?
Yes, Chair, that's 1/4
Then I will cease and I'll wait for my 3 minutes summing up. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope we have Ellen back online.
Chair, Ellen has rejoined and she has 35 minutes left of her allotted time.
Okay, Ellen.
Thank you. Yes, actually going on from John with regards to the takeaway, the applicant has described his concept as a restaurant with takeaway, and coming from over a decade in the retail and property placemaking business, I've worked very closely with retail brands and food and beverage brands in particular. It's kind of a known tactic basically to gain alcohol license, and as John said, you know, it's very clear what defines a restaurant versus a fast food takeaway, and even describing the brand as similar to Nando's. Nando's is known in the industry as a restaurant, it's casual dining, but the very clear differences here are that it's waiter service. You sit down, you've got plates, cutlery. They're actually made to order, so you can actually change the ingredients within the order. It's not pre-fried. And the experience of sitting down, the behavioural patterns of customers within a restaurant and even Nando's is very different. It's not 15 minutes, sit down, eat and out. It's a very, very different type of setup, and hence the behaviour patterns are very different for a restaurant. And notably, the hours, I mean, I've highlighted within the section 3 of the pack on Agenda A, about Nando's, and you know their closing hours are latest at 11 p.m. at weekends and 10 p.m. But 11 p.m. is very standard in the industry for a restaurant, whereas this applicant has, you know, applied originally at 2 a.m. even 1 a.m. Those are all very clear known elements of a fast food takeaway chicken shop, and that's the reality here. Now I've actually gone past the shop fit and had a look in there, and quite evidently, and within the pictures has shown that, you know, you've got 4 digital pay order screens. Again, that just really highlights fast food takeaway, as well as the counter dominating the actual shop fit itself. And going back to the applicant and the brand itself, you know, the brand across London is, you'll see that their hours are very late night chicken takeaway shops. And looking at the applicant actually applied for an alcohol license at Morley's and Brick Lane, and that was rejected. And I think it was very sort of quite clear from PC Mark Perry, who was quoted within this pack. You know, his concerns really was around the increased crime and disorder, and, you know, the fact that the applicant has no dispersal plans, which, again, evident, there's nothing within the applicant's pack here around dispersal. So, as I said, having another takeaway, you know, cumulative impact here is not going to be, it's just going to compound the problem that we've already got. But adding alcohol to that is going to be very detrimental. And and rightly, we are extremely concerned about this application going forward. And that's it for me.
Elena, how many minutes left?
I've probably got another 20 minutes, but that's fine, Councillor.
Okay. In that case, we have Charlotte. Charlotte will be speaking on behalf of.
No, Chair. Sorry, we have Councillor.
Okay, we have Councillor. Yeah, we have
for 5
Councillor.
minutes now.
Yeah, we have Councillor speaking on behalf of Mima. So you have 5 minutes.
Hi, sorry, Chair. I would like to allow the other residents to go first, and maybe go towards the end.
Okay. In that case, then we might have Charlotte Dexter to speak, and she's speaking on behalf of Belinda Donovan. So she has 10 minutes to speak.
Okay, I can't have 5 more minutes from Ellen.
All right, have 5 more minutes. Make it
Thank
50.
you, Madam Chair. Okay, I'd like to call your attention to supplemental agenda A and the page number 24. So this is after some of the visuals that Ellen was just going through, okay? Back to page number 11, she mentioned these CAD numbers. I would like to say that I have an email, I didn't include it in the pack, but I have an email from our local Safer Neighborhood team, one of the police, who was kind enough to pull these CADs together. He explained to me in that email, if we need it in the future for anything, that this is the antisocial behavior and disorder partial crime hotspot in our ward. And it has been this since defined by the police since January. Problems have gone on in front of McDonald's, inside and outside and down the road for a long time, but they have finally, defined this as an ASB hotspot. Unfortunately, because of special measures, there's not patrolling in the evening. There's no possibility of patrolling, but they're working very hard with the McDonald's manager and with the Lilly Ward Safer Neighborhood team, SNT, of Met Police, and they're making some inroads. So it's important that you know that those CADs come from an official document that I do have and I can share if we need it at some time in the future or for the file. The Met Police asked me specifically to say to you, please do not allow this application. Please do not allow alcohol. Please do not extend hours. All that this is going to do, in their opinion, is move and expand the problem from McDonald's over to its neighbor. So we're going to have sort of a double McDonald's scene, which they believe will quadruple at least all the problems that they're dealing with, which are daytime and nighttime problems. So we were unable to discuss this with the licensing police. I've included some things in the pack to explain how we've tried to communicate with them, but unfortunately, the communication is not happening, which residents are very concerned about. But we are communicating with our local Safer Neighborhood team, who does come to our ward panel meeting, the Walham Green ward panel, and they also participate in the Lily ward panel, which is only 3 steps up, 3 streets up. So we're very much a bipartisan-y kind of, well, no, not bipartisan, sorry, I didn't mean that. We're working together. These 2 wards are definitely working together as part of the North End Road regeneration area. And we're committed as residents to keep working in ways that we can get things improved in this area, especially for Councillor Coleman, who is totally committed to betterment. And so we're here tonight to talk about how to make things better. And we have to make things better with premises license holders who really understand us, understand the community, are reaching out, are involved, are concerned, have the police right on their back. You know, really, they know part and parcel of what they need to do to be part of the solutions that we need in this part of town center. Okay, on to, I'm just going to highlight page 25 of the supplemental agenda A. We're still on that. So I went on Saturday to talk with the manager, Siva, of McDonald's. I've highlighted her concerns. She told me point blank right away, she said, the franchisee will immediately apply for any longer hours if this new premises gets longer hours. And she said that that will increase problems around here. And although she deals with the police on a very almost daily basis, at least during the day, when the local Safer Neighborhood team works, they don't work in the evening, except once every 6 weeks, they kind of do a nighttime watch type thing. So she was very concerned. She closes the upstairs now. She's turned off all the Wi-Fi upstairs. She's trying to figure all that out with her tech people. She's closing the toilets upstairs. She has a disabled toilet downstairs that she lets people use. She has a myriad of problems. Then I was totally surprised when she said, my CCTV isn't working correctly because of these huge signs across the street that the applicant put up. It was somehow reflecting into her glass. And so the CCTV wasn't, picking up things and so on. So, problems that we can't even imagine start happening when an applicant, tries it on and puts up signage that's totally inappropriate to the building and also is too big and bigger than it was actually put onto the application, unbelievably. Okay, I'd like to move on to my page 26, which is exactly about planning. Planning is not licensing, but the licensing policy does state very clearly that you expect the planning to be there. The planning permission is not there. There's a need for a takeaway permission here, and the applicant is finding ways to not apply. The applicant is putting the burden on the council to maybe enforce or maybe not enforce, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have a planning application, certain conditions will be put on that, which will help the licensing application. So, risk assessments, fire safety, crowd control, all that type of thing would be put on a planning application. So clearly, I'm sorry, but the applicant is avoiding applying for a planning application for a change of use from what is now restaurant to takeaway. The new planning laws in 2020 require this. He's avoiding it, and that that is not very fair. And we know about this, so we're concerned about it. And he took a gamble and he's been caught. And now we're in a lot of trouble on various fronts. On page 27, I go into a lot of detail about if you decide about alcohol, just start thinking about things, please. For instance, how many cups of alcohol should someone be able to order with a meal? And you know, they can order 10 cups of beer. And by the way, the police said, please, only plastic cups, no glass, you know, with glasses or weapons, etc. So all of these things that I've said here are just the beginning of a myriad of types of conditions that would need to be put on this license in great, great detail, because otherwise we're just going to have problems. And as we know, once a license is there, it's very difficult to change, and we never can get to a review. And so it's now or never type of thing. So I won't go on there, but the applicant did tell me, because I did ask Olu, the agent, they did say that the alcohol would be 2% of their sales. So that might be a reason that the committee would just consider that, you know, it's not significant enough to have all the problems and all the conditions and all the oversight that would be needed by police that don't have time to oversee. Now, the next page, 26, I did mention that the police, the licensing police, so the Met Police assigned 2 police to London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham to oversee the licensing matters. And they agreed this condition with the applicant about 5.5% beer, so 5% alcohol in the beer, except for craft beer. Now, we were here several weeks ago about the craft beer. The chairwoman, Madam Chair, will remember. She asked about percentages because she doesn't drink alcohol. So all of that got clarified. And so I asked 4 times for the police to, you know, consider why in the world did they allow craft beer if they're not, you know, anyway, they never answered me. That's what I'd like the subcommittee to know. And so if you do allow this, would you please put a condition on no craft beer, you know, 5.5%, that's enough. So I've given that all as evidence, which is all very unfortunate evidence. On page 31 of the same supplemental agenda, I too have touched on one-off cumulative impact as stated in your licensing policy, page 4, page 22. And some of these points John already brought up. So then I'll move just on to page 32, which is part of the planners have said that an application needs to be, that the applicant has been invited to apply for a takeaway, and he hasn't done that. And when he does, there will be a consultation and neighbors will be informed and so on. So we're looking forward to being involved in that. On page 37 of Supplemental A, the same supplement that we're talking about, we have found a very good study that unfortunately we get the first prize here, another first for Hammersmith and Fulham, the most noise complaints in London. So I just wanted to put this in so that the committee sees how burdened we are with noise complaints of all sorts. It's a big study. I've just used this one, but again, I've put the link where it is, so we have all that. You know, it's a valid study, and it's a useful tool if we need it. On page 38 of Supplemental A, again, I sort of underline the fact that a neighborhood consultation would take place for a planning application. And I contend that the applicant is denying residents and neighbors the ability to be properly consulted about this situation. So that's an unfortunate situation. And finally, in Supplemental B, which is a short supplemental, 6 pages, I think, the last supplemental, on page 3, you have the floor plan, which was put in they forgot to put the floor plan in, so a few of us pointed that out. So it was put in just at the last minute, so to say.
Sorry, Charles, how many minutes left on Charlotte's time?
1 minute.
1 minute. So just to remind you, Charlotte, 1
Yes.
minute.
4 minutes.
4 minutes. Okay. I just want to point out in this plan, this is the old plan of the pub. It's not the plan. What we'd like to see is the plan. But just to help you, you can see on a picture. Okay, just a minute. Sorry. Where am I? Okay, on page 39 of this supplemental agenda, you'll see on page 19, you'll see a photo on the right where you see the two historic twin doors. And then they'll see a photo on the left that was taken looking inside into this building site. So on the right, you see sort of a counter where people will pick things up. Way on the left, we're standing on North End Road now. So way on the left, you'll see there are already 4 tap and go type of things that you order your chicken and you pay for it. We hope if you decide to allow alcohol, they'll get all sorts of warnings that they can only order 1 cup of beer or 1 cup of this, that they can't do this, they can't do that. Their order isn't going to work until they do it correctly, etc. And then they go pick it up at the counter and they walk out, or maybe they sit down. So it's unclear to us how much space is actually in this place, because it isn't a plan of how they want to do it. So unfortunately, the subcommittee doesn't really have an overview of what the plan is. And that's a bit of the point that we'd like to make. We do notice an accessible toilet on the plan at the moment. And I think that they want to continue.
Charlotte, can I stop you for a minute? We are not on planning. The toilets and things have nothing to do with licensing tonight. So I think.
Okay, forget that. But the plan has to do with licensing. The plan is required under the 2003 Licensing Act to be attached to the application. And so with that, the subcommittee is required to look at the plan and decide whether the plan makes sense for the alcohol or the late night refreshment that you are going to allow or not allow. So that's why I'm showing the plan. Okay, so those were my points, and thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Charlotte.
That's 15 minutes, Chair, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Charles, as well. May I have objector A, who is going to be speaking on behalf of objector B? Can she speak? Is okay. Objector A, are you still there?
Thank you, Chair. Yes.
Yeah, speaking on behalf of objector B, so you have 10 minutes.
Yes. So I'm first going to speak for myself as objector A. I was a district councillor and served on licensing committees for several years until 2019. My daughter lives less than 100 metres from McDonald's and the Morley site, and I'm a frequent visitor to her house. Therefore, I'm speaking as a part-time resident and because I'm concerned for my daughter's safety and welfare. We both enjoy the North End Road with its markets and multicultural vibe. We're pleased to see the recent regeneration project completed. However, I strongly object to the proposal to extend Morley's opening hours to 1 a.m. at weekends and 3 a.m. over Christmas and New Year, and also to the request for an alcohol licence. In an area that is already blighted by increasing antisocial behaviour, both in and around McDonald's, 18 recorded crime and disorder incidents since January this year, I foresee that granting both these requests will cause enormous problems to residents of the surrounding area. The business model for this branch of Morley's is an absolute winner for the franchisee. If there's a late night opening until 1 a.m. and 3 around Christmas and an alcohol licence until midnight, Morley's Fulham will become the after-party venue of choice for groups of people once pubs are closed. With the purchase of a bucket of chicken, there will be no restriction on the amount of alcohol purchased, some of which will be strong craft beer. The application states there will be seating for 28, But having looked through the window, there is very little space in the customer area, and therefore it is unlikely there'll be seating for more than 10. Of course, there is no up-to-date plan provided. And so this is a takeaway and not a restaurant. It is therefore unlikely that these groups of people will sit quietly inside the takeaway to consume their purchases, but they will spill out onto the pavement. North End Road is too narrow to accommodate groups of people, and the delivery couriers, usually 8 or 10 at least, block the pavement to the side of McDonald's. Therefore, these people will be forced to move down Howdane Road, eating, drinking, talking loudly, and often shouting and swearing, and possibly playing music. There will be broken glass, craft beer normally comes in bottles, disgusting litter, vomit and urine, and minor vandalism to property and vehicles. There already is, but it'll be much worse. Obviously, this is an area where drinking in a public space is prohibited, but we all know the police are overstretched and unlikely to attend unless the situation becomes violent, which it well might. Committee members, as you will have seen from representations from Howdane Road residents, intimidation, litter, vomit, banging on doors and urinating in gardens are already a problem. But if you approve this application, the misery residents have to endure is set to become many times worse. With a recent increase in antisocial behaviour surrounding McDonald's, life for residents of Howdane Road is already unpleasant, and many worry that their personal safety is at risk. If Morley's closes at 1 a.m, there will be people continuing to drink and socialise for at least half an hour, which means that sleep will be disturbed until 1:32, and Christmas will be ruined if groups are partying until 3:30 a.m. outside your window. The second part of this business is home deliveries. Where else locally can you order a bucket of chicken and as much alcohol as you need? A 15-year-old in Hammersmith, for instance, can borrow a sibling's ID and order some chicken and 25 craft beers. It is frankly naive to expect a delivery bike rider to question the ID or refuse to deliver. They are self-employed, not trained in Challenge 25, and may feel intimidated or simply need to get on with the next job. It is therefore reasonable to conclude that this delivery scheme will certainly exacerbate underage drinking. While there are shops in the Fulham area selling alcohol 24/7, these do not deliver, and Morley's Fulham will have a monopoly on this service. This means that the number of delivery bikes waiting outside Morley's and McDonald's in the narrow entrance to Howdane Road will increase dramatically, making it difficult to walk into the road from North End Road without being pushed off the pavement. Yet another problem for the residents, who will risk being run over while skirting around the bikes, if not pushed onto North End Road and hit by a moving vehicle. An incident of this type was recently reported by journalist Bryony Gordon outside a McDonald's in Clapham, where she was pushed into the road during an altercation between delivery bikers and a bus passed within inches of her head. This application will contravene all 4 principles of licensing. Existing high levels of crime and disorder surrounding McDonald's will increase with late-night venues selling alcohol. Public safety will be jeopardised for Howdane Road residents, and indeed anyone walking along North End Road past the delivery bikes. Public nuisance will increase with noise, damage to property, vomit and urination, whilst it will be extremely difficult to protect children from ordering alcohol to be delivered using a false ID and thus coming to harm. Councillors, in my experienced view, to approve this application would be callous and irresponsible. You have every justification to refuse, and for the sake of local residents, I implore you to do so. Opening hours should match those of McDonald's and other takeaways in this mixed-use area, and a licence to sell alcohol must be absolutely refused, as it was in Brick Lane for similar reasons. I will now move on to resident B, who is my daughter. Hello, I'm a resident of Howdane Road. I have lived here for 3 years and have always loved the area, being especially fond of the vibrant and diverse North End Road. I am raising this objection as I am convinced, based on experience, that granting a late-night licence and an alcohol licence will likely escalate already high crime and antisocial behaviour in the area and will have a severe detrimental effect on my feeling of safety, as well as that of my neighbours. For context, I work very long hours and usually come home from work between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. at night. Since I moved here, I have felt increasingly vulnerable due to a number of incidents with Deliveroo drivers waiting outside McDonald's, as well as incidents with patrons of McDonald's that have made me feel uncomfortable. I will go into more detail below, but the effects of these issues are very detrimental. They have affected my sleep and subsequently my performance at work, struggling to concentrate, and my mental health. To summarise these issues: antisocial behaviour, youths loitering, threatening, making me feel unsafe. The other day, somebody banged on my door and then ran away. Howdane Road is already an antisocial behaviour hotspot, as evidenced by the crime report in your pack. I was flashed. A man purposefully revealed his genitals to me for over a minute and sworn at the other evening while I waited outside my house. This has not yet been reported to the police, but in the light of the Sarah Everard case, it made me feel really uncomfortable, and I found his behaviour very threatening. My car has been damaged on 3 occasions and had ketchup smeared on it. Noise. This will be insufferable for those who live directly above and close to the Morley's takeaway. Residents should be entitled to a quiet night's sleep, especially given Iceland start loudly loading their vans at 5 a.m, which between the closing of Morley's and starting of that would result in very little time of actual rest. People idling in their cars, keeping their engines running, polluting the street. Haldane Road is already filled up with drivers getting a takeaway from just one branch, so this will be worse when there are 2 takeaways at the end of the road. I have been sworn at recently when I politely asked a man to turn off his engine whilst eating McDonald's. Littering is everywhere, every day, and is disgusting. I've asked McDonald's to clear up on several occasions, but they just don't bother. I hope Morley's would be better, but I have concerns that they will be the same. I have written to licensing at the council about this previously and now resorted to picking litter myself on many occasions. In the recent hot weather, McDonald's poured gallons of cooking oil down our drains. Terrible for the environment, and the road still stinks of it over a month on. Urinating. Patrons and delivery drivers are often seen urinating and vomiting in doorways and front gardens. Difficulties policing. The Safer Neighbourhood team are stretched as our police, and McDonald's has been pinpointed as a hotspot of antisocial behaviour. McDonald's has had to shut upstairs due to antisocial behaviour, drug dealing and water fights. Delivery drivers. There are often 15 plus delivery drivers blocking a very narrow one-way street, both for pedestrians and cars. There is no parking for them already or space for them to congregate where they will not cause obstruction. This will only get worse with Morley's, as there will be double the amount of drivers. Bikes and motorbikes often drive the wrong way up Haldane Road very fast, with no concern for local residents or the many children who walk along the road. Drivers often make lurid or threatening comments to residents passing to their home. Local people already suffer these problems with McDonald's, which doesn't even serve alcohol and shuts at 11 p.m. Therefore, it is not unreasonable to think these will be exacerbated by an additional fast food outlet next door, especially with alcohol and late night opening in the mix. The likely effect on residents is a huge adverse impact on safety at night, evidenced by the fact that the SNT are aghast at the idea of late night opening and an alcohol licence. They were apparently not consulted by the licensing police officer. I regularly feel threatened walking home late, particularly as a young woman who works late and comes home alone in the evening. Haldane Road is a residential street where people should have peace to enjoy their homes and get sufficient sleep. The negative effects of all
I think your time, 10 minutes is up.
No, I've timed myself and this only takes 4 minutes.
Charles, how many minutes left, please?
There's about another 30 seconds left, Chair, of the 10 minutes. I've been timing it on my phone.
Okay, the negative effects of all these problems are very detriment to mental health and work. Access is restricted. One can't get past delivery drivers already on foot and by car. Very dangerous. An increased number of delivery drivers means an increased likelihood of damage to cars and property due to congestion and dangerous driving at speed to and from deliveries. I therefore ask you to refuse this application for late night openings and an alcohol licence. Business should never be allowed to trump the safety and well-being of local residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Objector A. Can I ask Elena Ferrance to speak? 5 minutes. Is Eliana there? Yes.
I am here.
Yeah, 5
I am.
minutes. Please.
I won't need that long. I think my fellow residents have said a lot of what I want to say tonight. My mother has owned this house for over 40 years, so we're long-term Fulham residents. We live next to the Wellington pub, which has historically been a massive hotspot, and Councillor Coleman will back me up when I said we had a very long-running battle over licensing. They had a 1 a.m. license. The antisocial behaviour meant that some evenings we couldn't even take our rubbish out at 5 p.m. I strongly object to this application, and I really hope that the council consider it as absolutely inappropriate for a residential street and for this neighbourhood.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I ask Sarah Roberts to speak? 5 minutes. Is Sarah here? Sarah? Charles, is she here? I can't see her name.
I think she's dropped off the call, Chair.
Okay. Okay. Can I ask Simon to speak? 5 minutes. Is Simon around?
Simon Thompson is on the call, Chair. He just needs to unmute himself.
Okay. Simon? Okay. Is Emilia here? Emilia? Wax?
She's not on the call, Chair.
Okay. What of Chloe?
Is that Chloe August? Yes, that's
yes.
Me. I'm speaking for me and my husband, Greg Double, who are Haldane Road residents.
Okay, so 10 minutes to.
I'm sure I can keep it briefer than that, but no, most of the points have been covered. We put our objection in for kind of three main reasons. The first being crime and disorder, which I think has been covered quite extensively on the call. There's been a number of kind of crime issues, and it's obviously related to in the pack as well. The second point I'd like to go into a bit more detail on is public nuisance. There have been, we've talked about a lot here, but multiple instances. We live only 2 or 3 doors down from the Morleys. We have people eating fast food in our gardens late at night. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter who's had to sort of wade through people congregating outside of our house. We have 2 elderly neighbours on both sides of us. Me and my husband had to go outside and move them outside of those people's properties, again, late at night. I have massive concerns about having an alcohol licence at that premises, and again, late at night, just exacerbating those issues even more. It's completely threatening. We've had people urinating in our garden. I'm sorry to sound crass, but I've had to swerve kind of piles of sick while I'm walking my 2.5-year-old daughter down the street, and I'm desperate for this behaviour not to continue, to the point where I think it would be irresponsible for this alcohol licence to be granted. My third point and last point is around the kind of the protection of children from harm. There are a number of children who live in Haldane Road, including in our house. I think granting an alcohol licence, again, exacerbates these issues, but we also have a youth club on Halfred Elm Road that hasn't been talked about. Children come up and down this street all day, and there's obviously a primary school opposite. So I think it's inappropriate to have a fast food venue that targets children and does for its marketing that is able to serve alcohol around the clock.
Thank you very much, Chloe. Sarah, are you here? Sarah Chambers?
Chair, just to let you know, I received an email from Sarah Chambers. She's had to leave, but she has asked if Charlotte Dexter could speak on her behalf. And I understand that Charlotte is able to do that if you're happy with that.
Okay, Charlotte, it has to be 5 minutes, please.
Yes, then it will be. Thank you. Okay, Sarah Chambers is very involved with the police. She's a volunteer on a few committees with the police. And so she wanted to say the following. She believes at this juncture that the council should work to insist on only silent vehicles delivering all through the council, because through our borough, because the volume of deliveries has skyrocketed and there's no control. It's out of control. And our borough is about, I'm reading from what she said to me, okay? Our borough is about residents and lovely high streets, parades of shops, etc. So it's all about residents. And so she knows that Councillor Harcourt is here today from the cabinet, and it would be interesting to know if the cabinet has any way of looking at this and creating another first, and just demanding very strongly only silent vehicles for deliveries. She's also concerned that 1.9 million have been spent on North End Road regeneration, or whatever the number is. I don't have it exactly correctly, Councillor Coleman, but she used the number 1.9 million. Have been spent to improve the market, help the stall holders, improve the whole environment, help the elderly, give them a place to sit down. There's water now. It's all, you know, it's so much improved. It's fabulous. But what good does that do if at nighttime you allow more alcohol, more late night hours? She said to me here, you know, that unfortunately denigrates everything. Everything becomes a, she wrote to me, piss pot, unfortunately, etc. So we know the problems that exacerbate the problem later in the evening, and she's concerned about that. So finally, point 5 was nitrous oxide is a huge, huge problem around Fulham Broadway and in North End Road. We know it in the small canisters, and now they're big canisters, and there are guys that come around and they open their boot and they sell the stuff. They have, you know, it's like being at a fun fair, basically. So she's very concerned about that and believes that extending or giving these hours, giving hours beyond 2300, 2315, if you decide that you should be in charge of them instead of trading you know, before 2300 without alcohol, it's not you who would be in charge. So whatever you decide, nitrous oxide is part of the whole crime and disorder mix, and she wanted to bring that to the committee's attention. Thank you very much.
Michelle, thank you very much. And can we have Matthew? Is Matthew here? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, councillors. I'll try and be quite quick in the interest of time as well. I wanted to start firstly just by thanking the fellow submissions from the other residents and concerned members of the community, particularly Ellen, John, Charlotte, Objector A, Eleanor and Chloe that have already spoken. I think that really they've echoed the majority of concerns that I would put forward in my submission. Really, I wanted to just get on this call to just highlight and reinforce to the councillors the strength of feeling and concern in the community. I'm a resident of Haldane Road. This has been a topic of conversation and concern with my neighbours, some of which have children, as we've heard on the call earlier tonight, obviously, some of which are elderly, some of which have mobility and disability issues as well. And the threat of sort of safety concerns with the antisocial behaviour and risk of crime is something which people take very seriously and are very concerned about. So I wanted to just kind of impress those points to the councillors as well. We're already seeing, as you've heard multiple times on the call tonight, a lot of the issues of noise, nuisance, antisocial behaviour and risk of harm to children with the existing McDonald's that we already have at the corner of North End Road and Haldane Road with the McDonald's site there. And I think, you know, having the Morleys adding to that also with the alcohol is just another cocktail for disaster, basically. Finally, I think, again, it's been referred to by a couple of submissions that the sign which has been placed on the building by the applicant has shown, you know, no regard for the due process and no regard for the character of the street or for the residents of the street. But I hope that the councillors would be able to take the risks of the development into consideration. And on the grounds of everything that you've heard tonight, hopefully you'll agree that we think this is something which you should have very good grounds to reject on behalf of the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Matthew. Can I ask Simon? Is Simon back? Okay, I have Oscar.
Yeah, would it be possible for me to speak? Yeah. Is that right? All right, just by way of background, I'm actually a resident in the building. So I live in flat 3 on 10A Haldane Road, apartments. So we share the same freehold and so on. So I thought it'd be helpful if I give you a little bit of my experience, would, I guess, aid the current situation, but also what's going to happen going forward if this application is approved. So I think, I mean, I'm the situation at hand, I guess, is already pretty bad. I think we're having already, I mean, clear cases of antisocial behavior, noise disruption. We have genuine concerns in terms of safety. And maybe it's helpful that if I just give you a few examples that occurred recently. Recently, I come home sometimes late at night, sometimes not so late at night, with people inside my reception area because it's been raining and so on. So they basically, so this is basically a function of forced entry. I've had it's very difficult to sleep because this is a little bit of a hotspot for delivery drivers, and they all gather just outside McDonald's on the little enclave that goes into Haldane Road. I've had I lost count on the number of times the police has arrived because to break up fights and so on. I mean, otherwise I've come home to have people urinating on my doorstep, and this is without any alcohol. So I think if you allow them the option to serve alcohol, obviously it's only going to move in the wrong direction, and yeah, it's a real issue for us. And I mean, you come home and you don't feel safe because people are blocking the access to your flat, and yeah, it's already a bad situation, and this is only going to make it worse. So yeah, I mean, I find those little tubs of nitrous oxide on my doorstep pretty much every morning, which is my much wider, I guess, social problem. But yeah, so this is a little bit of my direct experience living in the building, and yeah, it's a big concern of mine because it ultimately comes down to, I guess, to safety, and yeah, it's not great today, and it's only gonna get worse. So now I'm done. So
thank you, Oscar. Thank you very much. Simon, I think you are back.
Yes, I am back. Sorry
Okay.
about that earlier. Hello.
5 minutes. You have 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yes.
Well, I'll be very brief. I mean, I support, most of what's been said by everybody else so far this evening. My 2 points, really. First of all, in terms of the Wellington, they did actually have a license until 1 a.m. And I've been a resident of Haldane Road for coming on about 25 years. And it became unmanageable, the antisocial behavior, despite the fact that they actually had security trying to sort of control the behavior of drinkers, etc. And they voluntarily scale back their licensing again to 11 p.m. The other thing is that, it's undoubted, this antisocial behavior in the area. It's been reported by so many sources. I don't need to sort of add to it. My own porch of my house is continually urinated on, and there's a continual smell, on the doormat within the porch. And I have people, drinking behind the hedge and doing whatever else. But I think, the problem is that if this license is granted, then one is relying upon the police, to manage the antisocial behavior, or we're relying on Morleys, to voluntarily do something about it. The police simply don't have the resources, to deal with antisocial behavior of this kind unless somebody is stabbed, or there is a major fight breaking out. They're not going to stop drug stealing. They're not going to stop people sort of urinating or drinking behind hedges or whatever else. And so I would just urge the council not to create the problem, by granting this license, and just refuse it, because there's nobody out there to police this. And we all know that this antisocial behavior exists already and will only increase. And my final point, is that if this license is granted to Morleys, it sets a precedent, for other takeaway outfits in the North End Road to apply for similar licenses, which is only going to compound the problem. I'll leave it there, but thank you very much for giving me the time to speak.
Very much. I think we have Sharon. Is she here? Charles?
She's not on the call.
Okay, she's not. Okay, then we have Councillor Trey Campbell to speak first. Councillor.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. This evening, I am here to represent the views of one of my residents, Miss Kajori. And if time then allows at the end, I may be able to represent some of my own points and objections to this application. Miss Kajori lives right on top of the restaurant, and she suffers with clinical anxiety and says that this has exacerbated her condition. She had a breaking and entering case in her building recently, caused by the previous restaurant owner, which she has voiced to the council many times. The restaurant and residential units are connected, so you can imagine the danger it imposes on the residents adding an alcohol license to the chicken shop. The liquor license will only add to the existing noise and risk the safety of residents living in the immediate building as well as surrounding apartments. This application will add to the traffic of the already blocked entrance. And if you look at Ms. Kajori's entrance, the delivery and McDonald's crowd often prevent residents from entering their own premise. In addition, the signage has ruined the image of the entire road and building and goes strictly against the image that Ms. Kajori was shown at the time when she bought her premises almost 5 years ago. Ms. Kajori would like the committee to consider these points and the points raised in her objection and reject the application. My objections are now, as one of the ward councillors for the ward.
Councillor, I have to speak. I have to tell you cannot speak because you did not register to speak. You're only allowed to speak on behalf of your resident, which you have just spoken about. So the licensing officer said they didn't receive any email from you that you want to speak. They only allowed you to speak on behalf of your residents.
Yeah,
so
with all due respect, Chair, I think a lot of these objections has been echoed by residents on the call, and I'm sure that Ms. Kajori would also share my sentiments in the objections that I'm raising. I'm an elected councillor for a ward, and I'm not raising these objections on my behalf. I'm raising.
I know, but that's the licensing laws rules to that. Edrin, could you explain to us what
Yes, I mean, councillors, as in any other party, can make representations in their own right, or they can represent somebody else. And obviously, the comments that you've made previously, you're representing directly somebody who's made a valid representation. But you can't, because you didn't make a valid representation yourself, you then can't make other comments, if you see what I mean.
Okay, well, yes, I will continue on and this is on behalf of Ms. Kajori. So the ASB is the #1 problem in the ward. McDonald's is a hotspot for crime, according to colleagues in the S&T. Ms. Kajori has concerns about adding yet another fast food restaurant to the North End Road, given the proposed opening hours and lack of crime preventing measures being taken, apart from installing CCTV and signage, which has been evidenced in the past as not always being able to deter crime. Ms. Kajori also says about the persistent, noise and nuisance that occurs down North End Road and Haldane Road, and in regards to in loud noise in the evening, and this will only add to the noise with hours right up until midnight, 1 AM and 3 AM at Christmas. Ms. Kajori can't quite understand why a chicken shop would need an alcohol license, and from a brief search of the nearest Morleys to us in both Ealing and Wandsworth, they do not currently hold or sell an alcohol. The audience for such shops attract are mainly teenagers and young children. And as another resident mentioned on the call just a little while ago, there is a local youth club and a primary school nearby. I think it would send the wrong message as a council to grant this application and as such allowing a license that would run the risk of children potentially being able to get their hands on alcohol with a simple purchase of 6 wings for $3.60. Ms. Kajori would also like to raise an issue with the alcohol delivery agreement. As stated in the agreed conditions on page 5 of the agenda document, that delivery riders will carry out ID checks on over 18 products. Now, this isn't always the case, and a delivery rider is not going to put precedent on, in my opinion, and in Ms. Kajori's opinion anyway, over checking an ID, over potentially getting paid, and delivery riders are paid per successful delivery. So in conclusion, although not legally required, the lack of community engagement is also a concerning factor for Ms. Kajori, and that hasn't been done by the applicant. So in conclusion, for all the reasons residents have raised, Ms. Kajori is requesting yet again that this application be rejected.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, thank you. Now we have Councillor Ben Coleman to speak, and Councillor, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Chair. And I think, as you will, the committee, that the comments made by residents are powerful and persuasive, and I don't intend to rehearse them all because you are here, but I will stress some of the points which you're hearing again and again and again. The very simple fact is, it seems to me, this is not a restaurant, it is a takeaway, and there is insufficient evidence, I think, for the committee provided by the applicant to persuade that this isn't just a place which is fundamentally to take food away from. I think that's an important point, and if it is fundamentally a takeaway, as opposed to a restaurant, and the wool is being attempted to be pulled over our eyes, I think that raises further questions about what sort of people we're dealing with. I have my own concerns about people who come to set up businesses who wish to have the privilege of trading in our borough without taking the trouble to understand the area that they're moving into. And it is quite clear, I think, to all of us listening, that they have not taken the trouble to talk to neighbours or to understand that this is fundamentally a residential area. I know residents have raised it, the problems that McDonald's causes to Haldane Road, and indeed I'm actually dealing with that at the moment, trying to get the Safer Neighbourhood team to talk to the manager to reinstate the cleaning of the street by McDonald's employees. This will only exacerbate the issues. I also don't understand why it needs to sell alcohol. What is the market? If you have mostly school children coming during the day, you have issues of antisocial behaviour already on the street, right next to a residential road which has suffered enough from a very active pub which no longer exists, I'm pleased to say, in that road. Why does it need to sell alcohol? The case isn't made. You've got a takeaway that's selling booze late at night. We've spent, and other people have pointed out, nearly £2 million with support from the GLA on improving North End Road. It's becoming an attractive road, but it is a battle, a constant battle to bring North End Road up to the high standards and the pleasant place that we want it to be. And this will take us backwards. Final point I want to make is coming back to the issue of people who want to come into our area to trade and make and have controversial businesses and make no attempt to engage properly locally. So they act effectively like spaceships. So we have no understanding shown of the residential area of the residential nature of the area and of the problems that already exist as a result of McDonald's. We have no indication that they have any interest in maintaining the attractive look of the road and indeed of the building. We've had a battle over signage, which was wholly unnecessary, but we wouldn't have been a battle if they were the sort of people that started off by listening rather than by trying to impose views of things that happened elsewhere. So I have total sympathy for the comments expressed. I have little faith in the commitments made by the applicant. I think a number of concerns have been raised which will worry you as deeply as they worry me. I obviously look forward to seeing what the applicant is going to say in response, but I would urge you to listen to the residents and not take this application forward in the way that they've requested.
Thank you, Councillor. Now we go to the applicant. Applicant, is your agent going to be speaking, or the who is going to be speaking? Is it Olushola, the applicant's agent, or the applicant himself? So which one of you are going to be speaking?
Hello, Councillor, it's Samuel here. Is it possible for my agent to speak and then for me to speak afterwards with our 5-minute slots?
Okay, no, you have 75 minutes, which is you have an hour, 15 minutes, I think, to speak. So, which means you and your agent can divide it.
Okay, brilliant. I'll allow Olu to speak first, and then I'll go after. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm the agent for the applicant, and as rightly mentioned, Adrian mentioned that the application was submitted on the 3rd of May 2023, and all the statutory pathways were duly followed. The application was advertised as required, and both in the premises and in the newspaper. And the last day of consultation was on the 31st of May, 2023. The application originally seeks to carry out the licensable activities as follows. The first one is the retail sale of alcohol, Monday to Sunday, between the hours of 11 a.m. to 12 midnight. And the second one was late night refreshment, Sunday to Thursday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight, and Fridays and Saturdays, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. The third one was the opening hours, which was between Sunday to Thursday, 11 a.m. to 12 midnight, and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. the following day. Now, consultation was duly carried out with two of the responsible authorities. The first one was with the police, and certain number of conditions were agreed, and the hours were amended, especially for the Friday and Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. And also the second responsible authority, that is the environmental health, the noise nuisance officer, there were proposed conditions which was later put forward, and all that was agreed with the environmental health officer. And then consultation was also with few residents who raised some queries which were responded to in writing. And that is the end of my presentation for now. I think any other question can be put forward, and then Mr. Sam Aduba, the applicant, can respond. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Olusola. Can I have Samuel to speak? You have almost an hour to speak. So.
Thank you, Councillor. I definitely won't take up that much time. I know we've been here for quite a lengthy period of time. So I just wanted to basically just give an overview of Morley's and the restaurants, and then also just give my input, obviously, in terms of the application, and then also just respond to a few of the statements made, which some were certainly factually incorrect as well. So just in terms of Morley's, Morley's has been in operation for almost 40 years now. It first started in 1985, and it's now grown, family-run business, which has now grown to over 100 sites across London. What we've also seen, I guess, in the industry from when the first type of, I guess, as they call it, takeaway, chicken takeaway shop begun, is that over the last decade, actually, there's been a huge shift in terms of the customers' attitudes and wants when it comes to purchasing our style of food, which is the more restaurant concept and style. Hence, you'll notice more and more sort of chicken restaurants opening up. And I include Nando's in this as well, but others as well that maybe you would typically class as a takeaway actually have moved to a restaurant model, and you'll see a lot more seating, and you'll see the offering change as well. And with Morley's, over the last, I say at least 10 that have opened, 90% of them actually are restaurant style. I'll take you to Kingston, which is only a 25-minute drive away from the Fulham location, and that does have an alcohol license to 11. It also has a late license to 2 a.m., but it also has seating for 16. And if there could be more seats, I'm sure there would be. But this is just a type of trend that we've seen. So it is a restaurant I'm opening here. I have 28 seats actually in this restaurant, and I'm hoping to see how things work to hopefully increase that number in terms of that. So that is a style. And if I just put some statistics out there, factual statistics of which anyone can go search now, but 60% of new restaurants fail within the first year in the UK. It's a fact. You can go check that. And within the first 5 years, 80% actually go out of business. So we are in a situation where we're battling against the inevitable odds that there's not going to be a business here in 12 months' time. And I think the previous tenants of the location where I am, there are, I believe, 2 restaurants within the last 5 years.
Or can I ask, can we see your face? It'd be nice to see the person that is going to be opening a restaurant. Is it possible we see your face?
Sure, no problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Carry on.
Brilliant. So just feeding into that point that I made with regards to obviously the statistics about new restaurants opening, the previous two tenants, two restaurants within, as I understand, within the last 5 years were in operation, have both gone out of business. So they fall exactly in line with that statistic. 2 of those 5 years that the commercial unit has actually been empty. So there's been no businesses actually operating within that, which of course for the local area is detrimental. You know, some of the residents have spoken about the regeneration and the investment in the area, but you know, nothing hurts an area more, you know, high street, especially in terms of empty shops, which, you know, as you go down Northern Road, you will see there are some empty shops, which I'm sure the local residents and the local area would love to see them filled and, you know, bustling with life and business, which obviously helps the local, you know, economy, also helps local in terms of unemployment to be reduced. You know, and with the late hours that obviously we're hoping to get, and the alcohol sales as well, which will hopefully then allow the business to thrive, which will mean we can employ more people locally, which means there's more hours and more shifts to be given. You know, and it also has a knock-on effect. The reason why there's a high volume of drivers in North End Road is because there's a lot of restaurants in North End Road. There's a lot of groceries that use the delivery apps to sell their food. Off licenses do as well. Like, most businesses now are on the apps because they realize without that, actually, they don't have a business in this current climate. You know, it's in this digital age, a lot of people have moved away from, well, leaving the house and going to the high street, which makes it even worse if you have empty buildings in the high street, especially for even house prices, just from a personal standpoint from residents. So in terms of the actual knock-on effect, I believe I don't think we will add or increase any drivers in Northern Road because, as I said, it's a busy area with restaurants and other food outlets. I just think we would just partake in utilizing some of the drivers so then they can obviously earn a wage and a living. I think one of the residents mentioned that some of the, you know, residents here have second jobs because, you know, we're in a, you know, cost of living crisis and, you know, things are difficult on both sides. So I would suspect actually some of those second jobs from the residents are actually delivery driver jobs because they're quite, you know, easy to use, especially if you have a bike or you have a car, then, you know, you're prime ready to potentially, you know, be a driver and earn that extra money for yourself. So I think we also need to look at the holistic and wider perspective and not, I guess, just have the sort of narrow mindset that, well, you know, there's a restaurant coming and we don't like it, or we don't like the food that's being served, or we have a preference in terms of its branding that's been in operation for 40 years. You know, I think we should look at sort of the wider picture as well. And if I also go along the lines of obviously our discussions and consultations, it's not been a sort of slapdash, you know, let's try and get away with an approach, which has been mentioned a few times, which I highly refute actually, in terms of those statements. There has been a wide consultation that's gone across, and Olu mentioned it with regards to the police, and we've spoken to a few police constables on several occasions to trying to find the best approach in terms of my original application, which then we agreed to make some changes, which was from 2 a.m. in terms of opening down to 1 a.m. In terms of the restrictions around the alcohol that can be served and the alcohol limits. We've also had consultations with environmental health who have stipulate, you know, we've come to agreement that actually we will not be selling alcohol off-site unless it's through the delivery apps. And any alcohol sold on-site will be accompanied with food and would be eaten and drunk within the restaurant, as any other restaurant that sells alcohol does, you know, across the street or across the UK. So that was the consultation process that we had, and, you know, we're very open to make these changes because, you know, Morley's is a community business, and if you look at all the Morley's across London, you'll see actually they're very entwined with local community, from homeless charities through to actually local schools, and it's something that actually they pride themselves on, and, you know, are obviously always open and receptive to, you know, discussions with the community. So research has been done in terms of the area, in terms of us coming here and the concerns and current issues. In terms of the residents issues, we've had some dialogue with some residents and also the councillors who have also passed on the residents' concerns as well. And there have been changes made. I know the planning has been mentioned a couple of times, but the architect, did his checks about whether it's a conservation area, the building, are there any set stipulations, and it was believed that there wasn't. And we submitted an application, and while the application was in process, some work had begun, and then the concerns came back, and we were told and realized, actually, no, there are some objections here. Can you work with the local residents and the council to amend these? And we did. And I think that's a good sign of an operator coming in, that if they do make a slight misjudgment of error, or do something that maybe is not in line with what the residents or the council want, then there is clearly signs here that there's open lines of communication, and we are willing to make the changes, which we have. And I hope that will appease some of the residents' concerns around that side. I know the landlord was, because that property has been empty for so long, was worried about squatters, and the quality of the door was there, which was barely on its hinges. The whole structure and wood around it's actually crumbling internally. So he was worried about if easy access to get in, and then what happens once squatters get in. That's another issue. It's another problem, not just for him, but for the local residents as well. So obviously we put a strong door, but to obviously ensure we don't have that issue. But once again, obviously we've seen the concerns and we've made the amendments, and those changes will be made. So I hope that at least shows the residents that we are willing to listen and make changes where necessary as well. Just with regards to also the alcohol selling off-site, which will just be through the delivery apps as per the stipulation, an agreement with the police and environmental health. So with the delivery apps, they actually do have a challenge 25 policy as well, and every single driver that delivers alcohol to any premises or in the UK actually does require ID, and then they have to sign it off from their end. And they can't be laissez-faire about that, because they can be fired immediately if it's reported back that they didn't follow the process and alcohol was sold to minors. And of course, the Challenge 25 policy will also be conducted within the restaurant, even after customers have purchased their meal, even from a self-service machine. In order for them to collect their food, which comes with alcohol, they will also then need to show ID, and the Challenge 25 policy will also be implemented, as well as a logbook for any incidents. And of course, the staff will all be fully trained in this as well. So we have the checks in place. There'll also be checks on the self-service machine, which one of the other residents alluded to in terms of stopping people from just being able to order without going through several checks. But the final check will be done with the staff that actually hand the food, and that was where the Challenge 25 policy will be taking place. So with our application, the only alcohol that will be consumed will be on site, and then anything that's consumed will be actually directly in the consumers' houses. So there will be no one leaving the restaurant with alcohol, adding to the antisocial behaviour. Also, if I just go back to a few points that were made, just so I can just clarify some of them from the residents. So one statement was made about the food ordering, that we are just fried chicken, and unlike Nando's, our food can't be customized. And actually that's incorrect, factually incorrect. We also do serve grilled food, exactly the same type of grilled food actually as Nando's, as well as fried chicken, which is a different offering on top. But the grilled chicken can be customized as you would do in a restaurant, with different flavors, different heat preferences, different spices, different coatings. And also our fried chicken can also be customized as well with different types of coating. So we are a restaurant, and we have 28 seats, and I'm hoping to increase that. But I just need to see how it works in terms of the current seating, which I have, which is 28. And that's on the day we open, there'll be 28 seats, which you can come and see. But hopefully if there's space, and we'll just see how the flow of customers work. But if there is more space, then we will actually look to add more seats to hopefully increase that. capacity. I've mentioned already, 25 minutes away, Kingston has a alcohol license and also has a late night license to 2 a.m. as well. So there is a precedent for model in a close Morley's that's not too far from here, sort of similar area, and there hasn't been any issues with the police. I know Brick Lane was mentioned a few times as well. You'll also look at the records on Brick Lane, which opened in lockdown 2020. You'll actually see there's actually been no complaints from the police either. So I think sometimes we get caught in the stereotype that a certain type of food restaurant is coming into an area, so instantly it equals trouble, instantly it equals antisocial behavior. And I think that's incorrect. And I do believe you have to take it by case basis on any type of restaurant or, shop or, industry that sort of comes into that commercial unit. Because I do think it's unfair being tarnished with such a large brush, where I could show you the last restaurants, as Brick Lane's been mentioned many times, where actually there hasn't been any issues at all with the police. But, based on some of the comments, you'd think it's going to be a daily occurrence. Just with regards to also the licensing objectives. So, as I said, I'm open to speaking to residents and having a consultation, which I have done. And I did speak to one resident who's on this call, and, it was a pleasure speaking to the resident. I think we spoke for almost an hour. And I do feel like I actually, answered all his questions in full depth and detail. And, it's a shame that maybe he feels that, I didn't alleviate his concerns fully, but I believe I did. And the research has been done. And I'm aware of, the current climate in the area and the licensing objectives, et cetera, and how we can sort of support in, minimizing not contributing to any issues that currently persist within the area. Also as well, so one of the residents mentioned that they've spoken to the manager of McDonald's, which is directly our neighbour across the street. I do feel that the weight, we have to take into account that I am a competitor of McDonald's. So we will be vying for some, not all, but some of the same business. So I do have to query the weight of their comments saying that, it's going to be an issue us coming because, of course it benefits them if I don't come. But it may not benefit them as much if I am there. So I think we have to take maybe some of the comments with a pinch of salt in terms of what's been said from the manager there. Also as well, just in terms of what was brought up, 2% of sales. So as I said, we are a restaurant, but we do want to have an offering of alcohol, and the alcohol sales are not going to be high like, say, you would have in a pub or maybe a different style of restaurant, but it does contribute to the sales of the business. And being able to sell a small range of beer that goes very well with chicken and some of our burger offerings and ribs offerings as well, will actually help increase our sales on the other side. So although, 2% doesn't seem like a large number, actually has a wider impact on the business, which of course has a wider impact on how many staff we can have on shift, how many staff we can hire, and how many hours we can provide. And of course, the knock-on effect to the other, people earning a living in the wage, which are the delivery drivers as well, who are, also, trying to earn a living in this, cost of living crisis as well. So just also on the rubbish side as well. So at all our restaurants, actually, Morley's has a policy because we have very branded items. So when you come into our restaurant, everything you'll eat out of will be branded. So you'll clearly be able to see it's Morley's. So a lot of our staff, we have a cleanup operation. So any local areas around the restaurant where we see our boxes, they get cleaned up. We do this on a regular basis because we understand, it's not nice for the streets, it's not nice for the residents, and to be fair, we're a clean business, so we don't want our rubbish just laying around on the high street as well. So that is something we will do, and we're committed to doing. And we're also committed to reducing the issues that some of the drivers, are clearly providing to some of the residents in the area, which, as I said, there are a lot of restaurants, so there are a lot of drivers. So it's almost impossible to stop drivers completely because there are restaurants and shops in the area that, use the delivery drivers. But we can also do our part to minimize any additional strain on the residents. And speaking to one of the previous objectives who I spoke to on the phone previously, I did say, apart from the notices that we will have in the shop, we'll also actually speak to the drivers as well, because it's actually a higher percentage than they thought. So actually, at least 40 to 50% actually of drivers are regulars, especially in a specific zone or area. So we'll start to become very familiar with a lot of the drivers, and drivers are also allowed to wait in our restaurant. We have a large restaurant. I don't know if everyone's actually been into that commercial unit, but it's a very large unit. And so drivers are allowed to wait in. We actually have an allocated area for drivers to actually wait in as well. So it's not going to be a case where they're just loitering on the streets or waiting outside just to receive the food, which they would have to do with some smaller locations and takeaway establishments. So another point that was mentioned was about the oil. So yes, we do use vegetable oil, and in terms of our oil, it's, as all Morley's oils are collected, they're actually collected by a recycling company. So no oil is put down into the drains. They are collected by the company that sells us the oil. They recycle the oil and then do what they need to do with it. So there won't be any issues from that standpoint. Going forward. Also, another point was made about the urination, in the local area. Obviously, we can't confirm exactly where these customers are coming from. They may not be McDonald's customers. They could be from anywhere. So I think it's unfair to say it's directly from them. But, we have toilets as well. So none of what I can confirm is none of our customers will be urinating on the streets, because we have toilet facilities for them to use. Also as well, just about our customer base. And once again, I'd like to just move away from a stereotype that only children eat chicken. I think that's completely wrong, factually incorrect. And I think we should sort of move away from these types of unfounded statements, actually. Most of our customer base are adults. And so we cater to all age groups. We cater to anyone that enjoys chicken, anyone that enjoys grilled chicken or fried chicken, anyone that enjoys a good burger, maybe some fries, maybe a veggie burger. But we cater to a wide range, or maybe someone that just wants to come in and buy a milkshake. But we cater to a wide range of customers, and our customers are not limited to a specific type of age group or demographic. It's all demographics, all ages, all ethnicities. So I'd just like to put that out there. Just to correct any stereotypes that have been made just about that. Also as well, children are not targeted, which was another statement made. No, we advertise our food, which is applicable to everyone, as I said, and anyone is more than happy to attend our restaurant. We are a family restaurant, so families are more than welcome to come, and then we have a plethora of seating for people to come and eat and enjoy our good food. And hopefully some residents, not all, but will come and maybe participate in a nice beer with a particularly selected beer, which goes well with some of our food. All we're trying to do is just survive in this world where actually it seems like everything's against restaurants in terms of being successful, unless you're a big brand with a multi-million pound marketing budget like some of my competitors, such as Subway across the road, McDonald's next door, KFC a few shops down, and Nando's a few more shops down. We're just trying to find our place in the local area and fit in within the community, and also support and be one with the community. I don't want there to be any animosity between the restaurant and the residents. Actually, I want us to be one, and I want some of the residents to hopefully come to the restaurant and enjoy our food too. And if there are any issues, then they can be funneled back through the management, and then changes can be made, as we've done in other establishments. This is what we do. Morley's is a community brand, and we've built up the brand and the business over the last 40 years by doing this and by holding true to those values. And I don't think that we don't want that to change. So obviously we're here to listen. And after listening to all the objections today, I feel that actually, Councillor, I don't know if this is the right channel, but I would like to reduce the alcohol timing. So I think listening to some of the residents, actually, I don't think we should be able to sell alcohol, even if it is through delivery apps, at 1 a.m. or 12 a.m. So I think if we can reduce that to 11 p.m. like all the other restaurants in the area, or most of the other restaurants in the area have, then I think, you know, that's a bit more of a compromise, and hopefully that helps alleviate some of the concerns from the antisocial side, so antisocial behaviour side. And I hope that shows a bit of willing and goodwill from our part as well, just to show, look, we're here to listen, and we don't want to just come and, you know, be an outsider and bash our way through and just, you know, operate. We actually want to operate with you. So I hope this helps. And, you know, there are open channels for communication still, and, you know, moving forward, you know, hopefully once we do open, and, you know, if we are able to obviously sell alcohol, etc., if there are any issues, as I said, there is an open door policy. The management team there are well versed and trained, as they have been in other restaurants, to, you know, take on any concerns for residents, and obviously make changes where applicable, you know. So this is basically everything I have to say, and obviously I'm open to any questions as well. But thank you for the time to speak, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Samuel. That's great. Now, can I ask committee members to ask questions of any party other about the application and issues that have been raised at the hearing? In particular, please, can your question be guided by 4 licensing objectives: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, the protection of children from harm. Please, can I ask councillors? Okay, we have Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Chair. Can I begin by asking a question to Adrian Overton? There's been a number of points made over the course of this evening regarding the application, the sale of alcohol and refreshment, but also there seems to be this discussion around the planning issues. And I just want to be absolutely clear, so that everybody is clear, that we are here. What are we here tonight for? Just purely the application for alcohol and late night refreshments. Anything to do with whether it's a restaurant or a takeaway or whatever is a planning issue. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, planning and licensing are 2 separate regimes and should be treated separately. There is a section in our licensing policy that says that, you know, ideally that if somebody applies for a license, they should have the correct planning permission. But there's nothing to say that a license couldn't be granted where there's not planning permission in place, because that is the law, that's the legislation, and they are separate regimes. That's correct.
Okay, so conversely, if we were to not grant permission tonight, then the restaurant or takeaway could continue to operate, assuming it gets planning permission, as a takeaway.
As long as licensable activities weren't being provided. So, for example, it could provide hot food and drinks up until 11 o'clock in the evening, but they need a license past 11 o'clock. Okay. And obviously they couldn't sell alcohol if you didn't grant a license this evening at all at any time.
Thank you. The next question, I think it may also is again to you. I'm interested, you know, we've heard an incredible amount about antisocial behaviour. We've seen lists of CAD numbers and such like as well tonight. Is there any reason why the police aren't here? Because obviously I would like to ask some questions of them.
So the police did make an initial representation and they agreed conditions with the applicant, and then they withdrew their representation, and they've agreed a number of conditions, but because they'd agreed that position, they didn't feel that they needed to come this evening to make to answer any further questions. But I think I would just point out as well, I think a resident did mention earlier on that the police weren't happy with the application, but I think it's, you know, it should be noted that the police haven't, you know, have reached a position with the applicant and they're happy with it. And it may be that maybe SNT officers or other police officers have raised those concerns, but I think any police position should really, in terms of the license, should come through the police licensing team.
Yeah, and that difference that you've just outlined is exactly why I would have liked them to be here, so I could ask that particular question. But they're not, so there we go. We
can pass that back to the police licensing team.
Please, because I think that's absolutely essential that they are here in future. Where am I? Sorry. Perhaps. Sorry, perhaps Councillor Stanton would like to ask some.
Yes, I'm Councillor Harcourt. You keep muting yourself. Yes, I'm more than happy to. I only have a few questions for now, actually. My first question, actually, I'm afraid, Adrian, it's for you again. It's for licensing, which is, it's a very simple question, actually, which is about the, we've not actually had in the application, and I know that there was one provided in one of the many supplementary papers that we received, a floor plan outlining the licensable area. But as was mentioned by one of the those people who spoke today, that's not of the proposed layout, that's of the old layout. And I'm not sure if you could perhaps just clarify the legal status in terms of us granting a license without actually having seen the floor plan.
So thanks, Cal. So as I understand it, the floor plan that was provided in the supplementary agenda, and I forget whether it's A or B or just the first supplementary agenda, but I believe that is the proposed floor plan, from what I understand, that was submitted with the application. But I don't know whether the applicant can just clarify. No, is that not the case?
No.
But it was okay.
Well, if I could, thank you very much, Adrian. Sam, if I could, may I call you Sam? Sam? Mr. Adubo?
Yes, that's fine. No problem.
Yeah,
Sam's fine.
thanks. Sam, could you just kind of clarify this issue with the floor plan? Because, and I have many PDFs open on my screen at the moment, so forgive me if I'm a little slow getting directly to it. I'm just slightly unclear as to what the layout will be of the premises, and so as I say, if you could just talk us through that whilst I desperately look for that file.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, so I don't have any of these documents open. Sorry, I'm currently abroad and yeah, I'm having a bit of access issues anyway. But I know a floor plan was submitted through my agent with the application, because he did request one for myself before submission. So I don't know if Olu can just clarify this for us, please.
But Chair, if I can find it, may I share my screen with everybody so that everybody can actually look at it, unless Olu has it there.
Okay, that's fine.
If I can find it. I had it a minute ago.
Could I say supplemental B, page 3? Supplemental B, page 3. Thank you.
Many thanks. Many thanks. Supplementary B. Right, hang on. That's A.
Have you seen it, Councillor?
Sorry. So I'm just, Gertrude, do you have it to hand?
I do, but I'm not quite sure whether it's a plan submitted by the licensing team or one of the objectors.
It wasn't from the licensing team.
The one I'm referring to, it looks sort of hand-drawn, and it's the plan of the old.
So I would suggest to Adrian to maybe check the files and find the application as submitted by the applicant, because the application would have the plan as well.
If that's okay, if we can just have some time, we're just going to check what plan was submitted, because I understood that the plan in the supplementary agenda was the plan that was submitted with the application, but we can have a look into that.
Yeah, if we can clarify whether that plan attached to page, I believe page 3 of the supplementary agenda B is the one that was submitted with the application, please.
We'll look into that and we'll come back to you shortly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Apologies, I've got so much open I can't seem to find the right one. Okay, in which case, Sam, can I just ask you one very swift question, which is, which delivery services do you actually use? It's Uber, Just Eats, Just Eat, Deliveroo, or all of them?
Yeah, all three.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Right, okay, so this now is a question directed at the residents of Haldane Road. Any of you, or maybe even all of you, it's a general question, which is this. And Councillor Harcourt, I think you know the question I'm about to ask, so if you would prefer to ask it.
No, off you go.
Okay, thank you.
I'll defer to you.
The question is, hypothetically, we may or we may not grant this application. So what I'm trying to say is this is not giving any indication as to what we may or may not think. However, the fact is that assuming that planning permission is granted, Morley's will be opening, and it will be opening until 11 p.m. Now, if we do not grant a license tonight, then this licensing committee is unable to impose any conditions at all over the operation of Morley's. However, again, hypothetically, were we to grant the application either in full or in part, we would be able to put on constraints on behalf of the residents and the council to control some of the ways in which Morley's would operate. So my question to the residents is this: bearing that in mind, would you be happier with a limited potential license or full license with constraints? Or would you prefer that there be no license whatsoever granted today, but with none of those controls in place from the committee?
Councillor Stanton, can I ask a question in response as someone who's speaking on having talked to a lot of residents? Because just to clarify what you're saying, if you don't grant a license, and therefore there are no conditions put in place, they can't sell alcohol, or they can?
No, they cannot sell alcohol.
Okay. So you're saying, is your question, would you be happier for us to not let them sell alcohol at all, or would you be happy for us to let them sell alcohol within conditions?
No, let me clarify. Sorry,
Sure.
I was thinking of the question as I was saying it, which is never a good thing, especially late in the evening. No, right. So the application has asked for two items to be granted. The first is the provision of alcohol, which is in two parts. It's on and off sales. And the second part is the late night refreshment. The committee can grant either in part or in whole any combination of those. So the committee could grant late night refreshment but with no alcohol sales. It could grant alcohol sales but with no late night refreshment, or it could grant a combination thereof. For instance, the committee could say alcohol sales until, well, it's now been offered at 11 p.m. rather than midnight, and late night refreshments until, say, midnight. Or we could say no alcohol, but late night refreshments may or may not be allowed. But my point is this: if we just say no to everything, then no conditions can be imposed because there is no license. If a license is granted in part or whole, then that enables the committee to actually put on constraints onto that license. So my question to residents is this: Morley's, assuming the planning application is granted, will be opening, and it will be opening until 11 p.m. Right. Would the residents be happier to say, right, that's it, with no control from the licensing committee? Or actually the residents would say, right, we would be happier if it were granted a late night license, say, for example, but doing that allows the committee to provide these constraints attached to the license.
Councillor, can I ask Councillor Ben Coleman not to speak? Let's hear the objector, then Councillor can speak. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm asking this question specifically for now to the residents of Haldane Road.
Yeah, well, he represents residents. He can still answer, but let's hear the objector, what she says.
It's already a febrile situation in Haldane Road. We've heard with the McDonald's. I don't think if you grant a license for alcohol and late night opening, it's only going to make matters worse. And you may put conditions on, such as you can only sell a certain type of alcohol. Residents of Haldane Road, I would say, do not want any later night opening than already exists at McDonald's, and they do not want alcohol sold under any conditions whatsoever. I think I'm probably speaking for everyone.
Right, if I could, I mean, thank you very much, Objector A, I think, as we're calling you. But if I could perhaps just hear from some of the other residents, a simple yes, if you are in agreement, would be fine. But just so I can hear really what you think. Eleanor?
Hi there. It feels a little bit like we've got a gun against our head. And, you know, I've lived here for 40 years this summer, ever since I was born. So I've lived in this road a long time. I've seen it change and move. To have a gun against our head to say, would you be happy with late nights? No, we wouldn't. We put up the Wellington for a very long time. It was a complete nuisance. It was awful. I kid you not. It's 11 p.m, no license. For me, that is absolutely the maximum that this business should be allowed, and they should be able to operate and function on that basis.
Thank you. If I could just go just in the order that the hands came up, to Matthew.
Thank you, Councillor. I think with respect, it's a bit of an unfair question. I feel like it's the choice between two things which clearly the residents of Haldane Road have objected to during tonight's conversation. But I would agree with what the previous two residents said, which is we would prefer that there is no licence granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then Haldane Road Residential.
I just have actually a question. What do you mean by conditions? Sorry if I'm sounding naive. So, because do you mean around if you are able to grant a license, then you can make the opening hours less? Like, is that the type of alcohol? Like, just
okay, I will answer that actually, if I may, and if any of the other members of the committee believe that I don't answer fully, actually no, sorry. Do you know what I'm going to do? Could you perhaps explain the purpose and scope of conditions, Adrian? Could you do that?
Yes, no, of course. So each license is granted and it's unique. It's not similar to any other license, and it has bespoke conditions. So you might have a condition on a license that says there should be litter patrols outside the premises, or that the premises should have a dispersal policy in place, and lots of other things to promote the licensing objectives. So if there wasn't a license there, then those conditions wouldn't be there essentially. But what I would point out is that those conditions are only effective from 11 o'clock in the evening onwards.
Right.
So even if a license is granted, they only bite past 11 o'clock in the evening. So you couldn't go into a premises at 8 o'clock and say, why you're not doing your litter patrol? That it wouldn't be effective then. So I think there's a distinction there to be made as well.
But can we just clarify that would be with regards to a late night license, not if alcohol was permitted.
Late night refreshment license, exactly. If there's an alcohol license that's from 11 o'clock in the morning, whatever the times are for that activity, those conditions would apply during those times. It's just that late night refreshment is unique in that it's not licensable until 11 o'clock in the evening until 5 o'clock in the morning. So it is a bit confusing, especially when you've got alcohol and late night refreshment on the same license. But
I mean, I think I have to unfortunately, agree with the other residents. Then I just feel that my concern is the kind of public nuisance and disorder, and I just have
okay, we have to cut it off here now, please, because they need 3 minutes to sum up. When they sum up, they can come back to us on that. I think we have to stop that now.
Okay. Sorry, Chair. Can I just respond then, just very briefly to the answers that I was given, which is thank you very much. I say it was a hypothetical question. Licensing is sometimes somewhat technical and complicated, so you may not have been aware that effectively that binary option was there, and I wanted really just to have a feel for how you felt about that, so that when we make our decision, I can understand exactly how it is that you will take it and you will feel about it. So thank you very much, Chair. I think actually those were really all of my questions anyway.
Okay, Councillor Wesley, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I've found my notes again. Just a couple of other quick questions. These are actually to Mr. Aduba. Are you actually going to be the manager of this store, or is there an appointed manager?
There's an appointed manager who's got a lot of experience managing various Morley's shops, and currently some that actually have an alcohol license and late night license as well, up until 2 a.m. Thank you.
Okay. We're still trying to clarify the issue around the plan, that whether or not it's been submitted.
Okay, Edrin is here. Edrin, what have you got?
No. Yeah, well, there was just one other point I wanted to ask.
Okay.
You mentioned that again to Mr. Aduba. You mentioned that you'd spoken to at least one resident. Did you do any proactive consultation with residents, other than responding to queries or objections that had come your way?
So the consultation period involved a lot of the queries, which were quite detailed, and I believe detailed responses were given. So that was part of the consultation period. I did speak, as you said, to one resident. I tried to speak to another. Unfortunately, we were unable to actually have a discussion. But yeah, that was part of the process. And my agent was also consulting with the council as well, who are also taking on some of the queries from some of the residents.
Sure. You didn't hold any meetings or forums or whatever you may wish to call them with residents or the for instance, the Haldane Road residents group or any of the others?
No, that wasn't conducted.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Adrian, have you got the plan for us?
I have, yeah. Just to clarify, Chair, that's on page 3 of the supplementary agenda B, and that is actually the plan that you can see there is actually the plan that was submitted with the application. I believe there was an administration error and that plan wasn't included in the report, but that's where I think in response to Councillor Stanton's question, yes, we considered it a valid application because we got that plan that you can see there at the same time as we got the rest of the information to make a valid application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elena, why is your hand up? Because we're asking questions. Elena, I don't think we allow you to ask any question at the moment. So can you wait for 3 minutes summing up for you? Okay. Okay.
Sorry, can I come back on this, on that plan?
Yeah.
If that's the one that's submitted, it still says public house in there. And wouldn't it not be normal to, if this is a restaurant, to indicate some layout of tables or seating arrangements as well? It just says kitchen. There's nothing about serving counter or anything there. It's say its outline is an understatement. And secondly, the fact that it says public house would suggest that it is not related to the takeaway or restaurant, whatever to be decided at a later date for which it is.
Yeah, I mean, we did feel that the plan reached the minimum requirements to be valid. The legislation mentions it should have a red outline of where the licensable activities were taking place. It should have fire extinguishers, fire exits, that sort of thing. But you're quite right that it was obvious that it was used from a previous, from the previous premises. But we would welcome the applicant to send us, when the works have completed, send us an improved plan to that as well.
So, Gertrude, can I ask our Gertrude, how does this work? Adrian, do you know, do we have to come back on this, or are you going to send us the plan? So what is...
Can I ask, first of all, the applicant, whether he's got a plan available that he can show it with us? And as Adrian said, you can consider the application tonight and we can add, or we can just ask the applicant if the license is going to be granted to submit a new plan showing the area edged in red. I think for the purpose of granting the application, you would grant the application based on the red line of the premises, whether it refers to a pub that can be easily amended.
Okay.
But I see the point that Councillor Harcourt made, that it was a plan submitted from maybe another previous application, but it needs to be amended if the license will be granted, and licensing should note this in their or send an email to the applicant, and if the license will be granted, we should mention this in our decision letter.
Okay, thank you.
But the important thing is that the area that we are going to grant the license, if that is going to happen tonight, would be the same as the red lining. So the red line has not changed.
Okay, I can see Adrian's hand is up.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, just to add to that, often what happens is when we've got an application and it's for a proposed premises and it hasn't been built yet, or it's in the process of being built, we do get quite a basic plan. And then when and if the license is granted, we will go out and carry out an inspection. And we would then ask that the license holder to submit a minor variation to amend the plan in relation to how it is at the time. But obviously, if the licensable area is extended, then that is something they'd need to apply for a full variation for. So I think the key thing is that the licensable area is right and that they can't start providing licensable activities outside of that area, and that you can only consider, you know, what that area is at the moment.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Adrian. I do have one or two questions to ask to Samuel. Samuel, you mentioned about delivery. The delivery you mentioned is about, I want to ask about your food. How will your food be delivered? What time? Do you have a specific time it's going to be delivered? The main food, the main bulk of food you are going to be selling, how would it be delivered?
Sure, no problem. So just in terms of deliver, do you mean to deliver directly to the customer, or do you mean deliveries?
No,
with
not
the
to
apps?
the customers, to the
Delivery apps.
Yes. No,
Sure.
not delivery app. I mean, how will your food be delivered? The main food you are cooking in the premises.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that will be delivered to the customers who will dine in within the restaurant. So they will come into the restaurant. They will either go to the self-service.
No.
No.
I mean, you must have a people delivering, like chicken. Who is going to deliver your chicken for you to cook? So how will this?
Oh, okay. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, the suppliers.
Yes, suppliers. Yeah.
Apologies. Yeah, so we have a range of suppliers, not too many actually, but they sort of cater for all our needs. So the chicken is delivered on site, and then it's stored within our refrigeration system, and also the packaging, etc., is also delivered. But it's delivered in bulk, so you know we don't have constant deliveries every day. Maybe two maximum 3 times a week we have deliveries come through, and then the rest is just stored within a really large storage basement.
Okay. At what time? During the nights or during the early hours of the morning? Because
no,
you know.
Sure, no problem. So all deliveries happen once we're opened. We open at 11 a.m. So any delivery that comes will happen post that time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And how many staff are at this premises? How many staff will you be working in this premises? Do you know?
Sure. So we sort of have a rough number now, which of course will change based on demand for the area. But normally we have on shift, normally around about 5 staff on shift. But in terms of actual workforce, we can hire anywhere up to about 15 staff in terms of being employed. And then, you know, some will be on full-time, some will be on part-time sort of basis as well. Yeah.
Okay. And you talked to us, so in terms of alcohol, so have you got somebody that has experience in selling alcohol?
Yes, so the manager at the site actually has his DPS license. So yeah, he's experienced, and all the staff will be fully trained as well in terms of selling, in terms of Challenge 25, in terms of our policy, in terms of record keeping, and in terms of keeping a refusal log as well. So yeah, all the staff will be fully aware, and we also have the digital sort of mechanisms within our self-scans to, you know, prompt and limit people from making purchases without them confirming that they are of age. But as I said previously, the final line of defence will be the actual staff that provide the food to the customer, regardless that it's been paid for. And if they challenge 25 and they don't pass, then they get a refund and they don't get served the food, and a record gets logged.
Okay. Councillors, committee member, do you have more questions? Okay. I don't have more questions myself. So now we're going to go on summing up. And can I have, please, in summing up, it's going to be maximum of 3 minutes. And
Councillor, may I make a request, please? Would you mind?
Okay, yes.
To the residents of the street as well. I'm so sorry, this is a rather hopeless thing, but may I go first to sum up? If you want me, if we're allowed to say anything as residents or residents representatives.
Okay.
I have to leave because, and this is sound pathetic, but it's my birthday today, and I was due to be somewhere an hour ago, But I want
okay. Happy birthday. Okay.
Such an important issue. Such an important issue.
Okay. In that case, you sum up. Then we go back to Adrian. To sum up. Okay.
Okay, I'll keep it short, and I really, really appreciate everybody's forbearance in this, because this is such an important issue. I think that my feeling listening to the questions were great, very, very interesting questions. They've elicited a lot of useful information, but I was concerned by some of the comments made by the applicant. My contention has been that they've landed like a spaceship in the area, and they haven't really taken the trouble to look at the issues and understand what the situation is. And I'm concerned about that, because it suggests that some of the things they're saying about dealing with antisocial behavior are not necessarily going to be as effectively addressed as they think. And when the applicant said, for example, that he's conducted a wide consultation, it's quite clear, both from what he said and from the questions asked by Councillor Harcourt, that he's done no such thing. He's conducted a legal consultation and responded to a couple of residents who addressed him, but he made no attempt to speak to the wider community other than that. And I think that's a mistake. But sadly, I think for the committee, a concern in terms of how the applicant will address matters in the future. And I suppose if I were allowed to ask questions to the applicant, which I realize I'm not, the applicant seems so clear that the alcohol license will not lead to an increase in antisocial behavior, that I would just like to ask the applicant, where I permitted, which I realize I'm not, if you saw an increase in antisocial behavior in the year following your opening, would you close? Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the committee for your forbearance.
Thank you. Thank you. In that case, can I have Adrian to sum up, the licensing officer?
Thank you, Chair. Nothing else from me, actually. I mean, I think I made the point about one of the residents who mentioned that the police had objections to the application, and that the police licensing team haven't objected and they've agreed conditions. So I was just going to make that point. But yeah, nothing else from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adrian. Now I go to the objectors. So I start with John, who's going to be speaking for Annabelle and Ben. So you have 9 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I'd like to just start with a quick pick-up point. I don't want to progress it too much. I thought that Councillor Stanton's question to the residents of Haldane was a very interesting question. My own take on the position, of which I absolutely defer to Mr. Overton and others, is that it is possible to not grant the licence for alcohol at all. It may be possible to grant a licence for late night refreshments to, for example, 11:15, and because it is past the hour of 11, I understand, or my understanding is, but I do defer to others, that that could allow the imposition of conditions or constraints. But I thought it was a great question, actually. It really got me thinking about it. It's not really part of my summary, but I just want to add that in for the wider consumption and debate. I have to say, listening to the applicant and the applicant's agent, well, the applicant's agent didn't respond to any of the residents' concern and can't even provide us with an up-to-date plan. So I suspect that reflects the position and level of detail, and I share Councillor Coleman's concerns with that level of submission. I also share the concerns. I do appreciate it's tricky for Mr. Aduba because he's abroad. We heard about trends in restaurants. He said nothing hurts more than empty shops. Well, for residents, nothing hurts more than crime, antisocial behaviour, damage, arson, theft, burglary. So I don't think, I think he's absolutely right. We should never be sucked into stereotypes. The current hotspot status of the application site is undeniable. It's not a stereotype. He mentioned, I think quite rightly, that they'd made a change from, for example, 2 till 1 p.m. But again, residents have absolute concerns between the hours of 11 and 1 p.m. We heard nothing about that. We heard about squatters. I did hear, I believe, Mr. Skoldberg talk about people in his reception area. I don't think I've seen a representation or any resident dealing with squatter issues or raising squatter issues. And again, it's nice to talk about, but it hasn't addressed the points and the concerns which so many residents have made very clearly on this call. That aside, where do I conclude? I conclude, and I would ask in the strongest possible terms to reject the application, both for alcohol at all and for any late night activity. We have not heard any evidence, we have not seen any detail that suggests that the applicant has considered the impact as required by the statement of licensing policy on any of the four principal licensing headings that we are all meant to address. I think he said amazingly at one point, no Morley's customer would urinate. Well, quite frankly, how on earth can he draw that conclusion? He has no control over it, no management. I quite frankly think that's a staggering statement, given everything he has heard tonight from so many residents. I very much want to just go back and draw the committee's attention to the decision in Select Chicken from 22 July, paragraphs 18 to 25 are immediately on this point. The plan for Select Chicken is very similar to the plan for this building. Clearly they're not identical. There will be some differences, but the space and the plan are very similar. Select Chicken were not even applying for alcohol, and it was rejected. The committee held that even installing a CCTV camera was not sufficient to deal with local residents' concern regarding the disturbance caused as a result of the operating hours, para 18. The committee found that in its considered opinion, if it granted the licensed activity, was likely to create more public nuisance and antisocial behaviour caused by customers and delivery drivers collecting deliveries from the licensed premises. It was the committee's considered opinion that this would have an adverse impact on local residents and the promotion of licensing objective for the prevention of public nuisance and the prevention of crime and disorder. Paragraph 19. Paragraph 20 says concerns regarding noise and nuisance were taken into account, caused by delivery vehicles late at night, as well as noise created by delivery drivers who will congregate at the premises and nearby. There are many other examples I could make, but in conclusion, it was the committee's considered opinion at paragraph 26 that granting this license will add to the noise and the operation of the premises late at night will disturb the local residents. It was the committee's considered opinion that this would have a negative impact on the promotion and prevention of public nuisance and the prevention of crime and disorder. That was an application for almost identical extended hours and was not an application for alcohol. It was made, the decision was made on the 27th of July 2020, and fundamentally, 2022, Charlotte, thank you very much. Charlotte is absolutely right. It's very recent. It's at 349 North End Road. It's just up the road. I absolutely urge the committee to take some guidance from that decision. So where does that leave me? So my conclusion is that there's nothing in this application that promotes any of the objectives. I don't think, my own view is, I don't think there are any enforceable or realistic conditions that can be applied, especially not when the applicant thinks that nobody in Morley's will urinate anywhere. I think, as a point I mentioned, that a decision should be consistent with the common law position as regards the right of residents to quiet enjoyment of their property and sleep. And I genuinely believe that the late night activity has a cumulative impact, which I would ask the committee to consider in full in an environment where we already have a dozen takeaways. And quite rightly, Mr. Aduba referred to other outlets which use takeaways. Increasing hours will mean more activity, more noisy drivers, more antisocial behaviour, more drinking late at night. There's a reason why KFC and McDonald's don't have alcohol, and we would strongly ask the committee to recognise that and reject the application for alcohol completely. I think in total that is probably a fair assessment, or a fair summary of my views. And as I say, please do have regard to the Select Chicken judgment and decision, and also the fact that actually we've heard very little, if any, direct evidence addressing the concerns from the applicant or from the virtually silent applicant's agent. And I think on that basis, I've beaten my 9 minutes. So, Chair, thank you very much for giving me that much time, but I'll hopefully allow you to move on. Okay,
thank you very much, John. Now, can I ask Elaine Lewis to speak? I think you're speaking on behalf of 8 of you. So
that's fine. I literally will keep it very short and sweet. I completely concur with what John has just discussed. We believe, the amount of residents that have objected to this, I think really stands clear that no alcohol license should be granted in whatsoever, and also very reduced opening hours. The applicant has today just mentioned, Kingston and Brick Lane, and I've just gone and looked on their Google reviews, which is at 3.5 at Kingston, at 3.1, which is particularly low. And I urge the committee to even look at that themselves. The overall is, what is this going to bring to the community? And, there's nothing against the brand, good luck to them. But the overwhelming, if you're going to operate as a restaurant, then the hours should be restaurant opening hours, and and no alcohol. That's the bottom line with this as a chicken shop. And you can tell me whatever. That's the truth of it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Can I ask Charlotte? You have 6 minutes that you are speaking on behalf of Blender. So 6 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to come back to Councillor Stanton's binary question, as he sort of termed it. I had to look it up myself, but there is a ternary option. So 3, the third option, which we have across the street actually at Papa John's. Papa John's has a late night refreshment, i.e. hot food license. So they're under the umbrella of the licensing authority until 23:15. So 15 more minutes gives the opportunity to then put them under the licensing authority. So that might be something that, well, I just say that's how it is at Papa John's, and that's a ternary option. I'd like to talk about the plan. I believe that the applicant has not put in a new plan, because he's going to see how it goes and see how many tables fit. I mean, he doesn't have a plan, but he's going to shove enough tables in there to try to prove that he has a restaurant versus space for people to stand. He has 4 of these check and go screens. So people have to be able to stand in front of those, not be disturbed, not have people creeping up on them, etc. He needs a lot of space for people to actually order their food. Then he needs space for people to, on page 20, there's a photo of supplementary agenda A, page 20, there's a clear picture of the building site and what it sort of looks like at the moment. And you can see that as you come in on the left door, more than half of the space is a counter, and to the right is a kitchen. So I would like to say that if you grant this license in any part, the plan should not include a licensable area in the kitchen area, because that's a big temptation for cooks and so on to, drink beer or have alcohol in their area or whatever. So we need a plan that shows only where the fridges are with the beer or whatever you're going to have, and then where it will be served, i.e. the counter, so that has to be licensable, and then it will be taken over and out. So, no, the whole plan shouldn't be read. It should only be where the customers are and where, what I just said. It should not be the kitchen area, please. This is a huge, huge problem in kitchens, restaurants, anywhere, that chefs and people, they start slugging alcohol. And you can't do anything about it once you have the license, because, well, it's a licensable area. It's on the plan. That's what we'll hear. So please take that into consideration. I'd also like to say that the police, the local police, gave us all sorts of conditions they want. I've outlined those. I'm not, you've seen all of those. from plastic beakers to everything else. They think that alcohol shouldn't be sold, after school, things like that. Why tempt people? I also would think, I'm very disappointed in the applicant that he didn't listen and read and see that McDonald's has Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They have from 8 p.m., sometimes from 6 p.m. and on match days, football match days, Chelsea football at home, they have SIA security. This is not a condition on their license. It's their franchisee's decision to try to contain a lot of the problems that they have. So I'm very surprised that the applicant didn't suggest that he would do the same thing, because clearly more kids are going to make their way to his place, which is good for business. I understand that, because the SIA security guy who stands there, you can order them up, you can order the height, the bulk of these guys, and he's got it's true, you really can. And he's got a big high-res vest on, and he acts as a deterrent to groups coming into that into McDonald's. So it would seem to me that, well, put it on as a condition, please. I guess that would be the request from residents, because I don't think that the applicant hasn't thought about it now. So why would he think about it later? Okay,
I think your 6 minutes is up, Charlotte. I think I have to.
Yes, I was just about to thank you. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Perfect timing. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I have Objector A speaking on behalf of Objector B as well, to sum up?
Yeah, I'm speaking first for Objector A. This application contravenes all four principles of licensing: protection of children from harm. Due to deliveries, it's really difficult to control underage drinking. Prevention of crime and disorder. 19 crime and disorder incidents around McDonald's make it a hotspot, and this application can only make it worse. Public safety, danger from delivery bikes, increasing crime and disorder due to late night opening will only get worse. And prevention of public nuisance, noise, urination, vomiting, out of control youth behaviour. Again, this is likely to get worse with late night opening and an alcohol licence. Samuel came up with some points, but I don't understand how he is going to stop people from taking their takeaways outside the building. And how often is litter going to be cleared? Is it going to be done at least daily? I somehow doubt it. And despite his points, the business will be successful because Morley's is an established brand and is very popular, whether or not he can sell alcohol or extend the hours. Therefore, I must request again that this is refused. On behalf of Objector B, this is not a restaurant if order is on the screens. There are 4 screens and you collect your food from the counter. This is a takeaway. Looking at the picture, I can only see about 10 chairs. So again, I am very doubtful that it'll be able to seat 28, but we will wait and see. This person is a resident of Howdane Road who feels very intimidated by the antisocial behaviour, littering, loitering, and which is worsening from McDonald's despite their security guard. Delivery bikes are a real problem, blocking the road, urinating in the doorways. And McDonald's also have a toilet, but that doesn't seem to stop them from urinating in doorways. There's no regulation regarding where delivery bikes should be parked, and there's no restriction on whether or not they have a motor. The police are not able to control a worsening situation, and I'm very surprised that the licensing police officer felt that it was acceptable with his conditions. There's been no attempt to reach out to residents whatsoever by the applicant. So again, we must request that both applications are refused. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, can I go to Elena? Is she here?
Thank you, Chair. I would ask, no problem, it won't take that long. I would ask the committee to consider how they would feel if in a climate of acknowledged existing antisocial behaviour, people peeing in front gardens, being threatened in their own homes, not able to take the rubbish out, how they would feel if a late night licence and alcohol licence were permitted by 2 Morleys on their doorstep. I refer the committee to the man on the Clapham omnibus, i.e. the test of reasonableness. Residents of Haldane Road already feel threatened. have battled with their ability to enjoy peaceable enjoyment of their own homes. This is a predominantly residential road, and I believe that the only appropriate course of action by the committee should be to enforce 11 p.m. closing with no alcohol licence and no late night opening. After all, McDonald's seems to be doing rather well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elena. Can I have Sarah Roberts? Is she here?
She's not on the call anymore, Chair.
Okay. Okay. What of Simon? Simon is there. Simon Thompson. Simon?
He's on the call, Chair, but he's still muted, and he had.
I know he's still muted. Okay. Emilia?
Not on the call, Chair.
Okay. Can I have Charlotte to speak on behalf of Sarah Chambers? 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to just point out that Sarah sent me a text saying that Morley's in Kingston is described on Uber Eats as a takeaway, and Kingston on Thames, it's described as fast food. So it's not described as a restaurant. Again, Sarah texted me from a cab. She said that she hopes that this is impetus also for the committee or the council to really start thinking about a plan to be the first council in London that requires silent vehicles. And we've got to get a grip, she says, on this, because the deliveries are just taking over. They're taking over residents' lives. They're taking over roads. They're taking over dogs that bark, the whole thing. I mean, we all know the problems. And I'm so glad that Councillor Harcourt is here today. He's in the cabinet. And it would be so good to know that somehow some kind of initiative is going to start, Sarah says, to really try to deal with this whole issue. And so I'll leave the cabinet member with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Is Emilia here? No. Is Simon going to speak now? Simon? Okay. Okay, I have Chloe. Chloe?
Not on the call, Chair.
Not. Okay, what of Craig? Okay. What of Matthew?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I think just to wrap up, and I'll be very quick as well again this time, but I think, on the key takeaways for me for this evening have been, I don't feel that any of the concerns in my initial submission have been addressed throughout the conversation and through the Q&A with the applicant. Rather, I feel as though it's an attitude more of meeting the minimum legal requirements, consultation meeting the minimum legal requirements, the signage again was referred to, checking whether we're in a conservation area, and then having no regard as to the character of the street or engaging with the residents. So for me, I would strongly urge the councillors to reject both the application for late night trading beyond 11 and also for the alcohol licence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Can I ask Oscar? Is Oscar here?
No, Chair.
Okay, Simon Thompson, is he going to speak?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay.
Sorry.
3 minutes, please.
No, I mean, I basically just want to say that it's pretty obvious, okay, that there is a huge track record, okay, in terms of, antisocial behavior in the area. I mean, that's it. And I just cannot see any sensible person reaching the judgment, okay, that creating another license, okay, on the corner of McDonald's, which is a hot spot for trouble, is really in the interest of the neighborhood. But thank you very much anyway for giving me the airtime tonight.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can I now ask Councillor Trey to speak on behalf of Mina. 3 minutes to sum up, Councillor.
I probably won't need that long. Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. Just to highlight some of the issues that Miss Kuroji has stated. She has clinical anxiety, and this situation has exacerbated her condition. She mentions about the units being connected, which is a danger to the residents and herself in particular, and just echoing the sentiments that have been made around crime in the area. I note that the applicant did say that Morley's have branded packaging, but so do all of the other fast food restaurants down North End Road, and that hasn't stopped the persistent issues that are being occurring down North End Road. I would just sort of finally say, with echoing Councillor Coleman's point about community engagement, it seems that the applicant has been reactive, not proactive, and has done the bare minimum for consultation and not actively seek to engage residents in this application. So again, kindly, on behalf of Ms. Kuroji, I am requesting that this application be denied. Thank you. And I'm happy to yield any more of my remaining time to another resident if they so wish.
I think we have called all the residents that are here. Those that are not here, well, we can't speak on their behalf. So I can ask now the applicant to speak. I don't know whether his agent or someone wants to speak. So which one? And Charles, how many minutes do we have for the applicant to speak?
The combined total for the objectives was 35 minutes, Chair, so up to a maximum of 35 minutes.
Okay. So the applicant, you have 35 minutes to speak. So I don't know whether your agent wants to speak on your behalf, or you want to speak on your own behalf, or you want to divide it.
Sure. Maybe I'll divide it. I'll go now, and then Olu, if you want to say anything afterwards, that's fine too. So I'll be brief, but I just want to urge the council to please accept the application. As I stated originally, it's difficult for restaurants in this current climate, actually any new business opening up, but in particular restaurants trying to survive beyond the first year, especially a restaurant like ours, as big as we are, which is only 100 sites. We are nowhere near KFC and McDonald's, nowhere near. We are an SME, especially as I'm a franchisee. McDonald's have global reach. Every single, you put them in any country and every single person knows who McDonald's is. Put Morley's outside of London, no one knows who we are. So we are not comparable. So whereas McDonald's can invest in, as much agents outside, or, in terms of closing later, closing earlier, sorry, of course, an SME actually doesn't have the same luxury. I'm sure their workforce is probably 3 times the size of ours, at least. So as an SME, I'm urging the council to please allow us to sell alcohol and also open a bit later, so we can take advantage of some of the nighttime economy, which will definitely go a long way to ensuring the business can survive and buck the trend, which specifically in this unit has been awful in terms of previous restaurants coming and surviving just over a year, and then going out of business, and then once again starting the awful cycle again. We're hoping to be an established brand in the community, and hopefully, last far beyond beyond what the statistics say, which is quite damning and scary for anyone to actually even consider opening a restaurant. So I implore you to please please accept the application. Just to go back on a few points that were just made in, I guess, in the summary, there is a plan in terms of the amount of seating. There are 28 covers, and there have always been 28 covers from the beginning of our submission. So from day one, there will be 28 covers. And the plan was, in terms of seeing how it goes, was actually to see how the flow of traffic goes in terms of customers in our restaurant. So when they're seated and standing, is there a potential where we could add more seating? beyond the 28, but there is a plan for a minimum of 28, and that was always the plan right from the beginning. With regards to the kitchen area and the licensable area for alcohol, so the reason why the whole kitchen area is also included is because we store alcohol in the kitchen. A lot of our refrigeration units will have the alcohol there, so effectively it has to be within the licensable area, or if it's not, then effectively our fridges are going to be on the actual restaurant floor. So that's why the whole area of the kitchen has been included in the licensable area, but no staff will be drinking. That's actually completely against policy, and I'm sure there isn't any company that in their right minds would allow that to go forward, especially dealing with the public and just for general practices and operational practices and just good standards of any business. Going forward. In terms of the delivery drivers, once again mentioned that, in terms of them serving alcohol, there's no regulation or restrictions, but there is. All delivery drivers through the apps, which you can check if you personally order yourself, actually have to go through a Challenge 25 process, and they have to accept it on their end, as well as you, the customer, stating that you have ID and you're above the required age. So, as I said, if they don't follow that, they will lose their jobs. It's in their policy, it's in their mandate, and it's openly available to everyone to adopt and read. McDonald's, of course, are open till 12 a.m. So they actually do have an extended license. As big as they are and as well known as they are, they still have been allowed to obviously operate that late. So and they are our direct neighbours. So I do hope the council do review this as well and see that we just want to be able to survive. And unfortunately, we are not as big as McDonald's. We don't have the branding or the recognition that McDonald's does, or the money to advertise on TV or anything like that. So we do hope as an SME you will also support us, and of course in turn we will support the local community, and obviously make some amendments and adjustments, and obviously try to alleviate as much of the issues that have been raised as possible within reason. Obviously, I did mention about our customers not urinating outside on our walls. Well, we haven't had that experience yet, but I guess it's impossible to 100% confirm that it won't, but you'd suspect a normal law-abiding citizen that has a toilet in a restaurant where they're dining will use that toilet rather than directly go outside onto the building and then start urinating. So I would hope that's the case, but as I said, there are facilities available, so hopefully that will reduce or not impact the current climate of people doing that right now, hopefully. And what it does is, of course, is also provide just additional toilets in the area, so which should hopefully reduce that. One point made just about what we're classed as on the delivery apps. Well, delivery apps are effectively takeaways, regardless if you're a fine dining restaurant. If you use a delivery app, you're effectively a takeaway from that perspective of the delivery app. So hence we're on there. But if you actually go onto the Google profile of Kingston, as I believe some of the residents have already, you'll see it's actually classed as a chicken restaurant. And the final thing, as I said previously, which I hope was heard from everyone, our initial application was to sell food until 1 a.m. on Friday and Saturday and 12 a.m. On Sunday to Thursday, and the application was also to sell alcohol. So as I said, hearing all the concerns today, I would like to just put forward that to the council that actually if we could reduce my alcohol time in terms of my submission to 11 p.m. So 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. to sell alcohol, but I can still just serve food beyond 11 p.m. till 1 a.m. on the specific days and 12 a.m. on the remaining days as stipulated within the application. I would like to put that forward because believe it or not, I do take everything the residents say and the councillors say on board. And, it's a balance. As much as I want to obviously appease the residents, but also I have staff, I need to, who rely on me, who need to earn their money and support their families and work really, especially in this current climate. So it would be great if I can give them as many hours as they want and hire more people, especially in the local area, which will reduce unemployment and hopefully antisocial behaviour from just people, maybe loitering on the streets because they've got not much to do. So I'm hoping there's a unified approach here that, maybe that can be found, an agreement that can be found where, both sides are alleviated in terms of their concerns, but also, supported as well. So that's where I'll leave it, Councillor. And once again, thank you for the opportunity to have my say.
Thank you. Does your agent still want to speak?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Yeah, the license should be granted on the basis of the following. Well, it is appreciated that there's quite a lot of antisocial behavior in that area. And I want the committee to look into the fact that a concession has been made, of course, in the application to reduce the alcohol sales till 11 p.m. And also, secondly, dispersal policy will be put in place. That is in order to reduce the issue of nuisance, public nuisance in that area. And thirdly, any local crime prevention initiative put in place by the police, the premises is very, very happy to work with the police. That is to alleviate or reduce the issue of ASB in that area. And then finally, the fourth point is delivery drivers will be made to arrive only when deliveries are ready to be taken and delivered to their respective places. This is to reduce nuisance value in that particular area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Olushola.
Thank
now, the committee will now retire and take decision in a separate room. Can I ask everyone to turn off their camera and the committee member to mute their microphone and go into deliberation in the small room? Thank you. Can't see myself. Charles, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear and see you, Chair, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you everyone for coming back. Molly's Fulham 308 to 310 North End Road, London South West 6, 1NQ. The committee have considered an application for a new premises license for the sale of alcohol, both on and off the premises, and late night refreshments indoors and outdoors under the Licensing Act 2003. The application, in summary, sorry. In summary, the committee has decided, after taking into account all of the individual circumstances of this case and the promotion of 4 licensing objectives, to reject the whole application. The copy of this committee's full decision, including its reasons, will be sent to the parties forthwith. If any party is unhappy with the decision, they are entitled to appeal to magistrate court within 21 days from the date of notification of full decision. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everyone, and thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you all.
Thank you, councillors.
Thank you,
Thank you,
councillors.
Mr. Harcourt.
Yes, thank you.